Good evening and welcome to our public forum on school start time. I remind any of the speakers that please kindly keep it to 5 minutes so that everybody has a chance to get their say. So, you want to do a quick overview first, or you want to just go right to it?
I can do just a really quick overview. I went and sent before vacation an email out to parents and staff that just shared some of the research on school start times with superintendent's recommendation that we look at the start times in light of us as a school district moving to the Cape and Islands League. When we initially brought Monomoy together, we initially looked at having the high school and middle school start second, but at the time, heard loud and clear from the Joint School Council for the high school in particular that being in the South Shore League really limited our ability to do that without our athletes missing a significant amount of class time. So, so with us moving to the Cape and Islands League next year, and then also just reflecting upon voices that we also loudly heard through the strategic planning process from our elementary teachers, that the start time as we currently have it at 8:55 for elementary school really isn't working for the elementary age learners. And looking at that, those two in combination with the research on teens and later start times, I'll put together the proposal that you've seen in the invitation to come here tonight and speak to the committee.
That said, the mic is open. Who would like to come up and share their thoughts?
Hi everyone, my name is Shauna Speakman and I am a sophomore here at Monomoy, and I'd just like to address the issues that I have with this. So in the original presentation of this start change in the start time, there were several issues that were spoken about. The first was the largest concern that I personally have of high school age students taking care of their younger siblings after school. What was proposed as a solution was to expand the after-school program, but this brings up an issue in itself. Many high school age students are the ones who work at the after-school programs, and with a later start time, those high school students would lose their jobs, and there would be a shortage of workers to take care of the elementary school students who do need to stay after school if their parents cannot get out of work to take care of them. Another issue that was discussed was the sports games. It was said that sports games would be established at 4 p.m. like Nassau High School does. An average high school football game lasts around 2 hours. Soccer lasts about an hour and a half, and baseball lasts around 2.5 hours. Moving all the start times to 4 o'clock would lead to them lasting late into the night, which would then lead to homework having to stay up later, which would cancel out all the progress that would be made with getting into school later. We'd have to stay up just as late as we would now and get just as much sleep. One issue not brought up in this presentation was the extracurricular clubs at the high school. Tech for the musical and play last for about at least 2 hours, sometimes going from the end of school 2:30 to 9 o'clock at night. One club that directly affects me is mock trial. All the club meetings for those run anywhere from 2 to 4 hours after school, which would mean I'd get home really late in order to do my homework. Another issue that was not brought up was the school choice students. Students that commute every day from towns like Barnstable, Centerville, Falmouth, Mashpee, and other towns that are so far away would have a really hard time getting here if their parents had to work early. If they couldn't drive themselves and their parents had to work, what would they do? Would we be able to provide buses for all of them? Probably not. Do they not have a right to go here? In short, while this time change has its benefits, no one can deny that, it has too many negative aspects to be considered a good idea. I hope that you take into account that the distaste students have for this time change while you make a decision. Myself, my peer Grace Boyle, and my peer Emma Mon started an online petition the day before school vacation started, April 15th, and it has already gained 148 signatures without broadcasting in the school itself. And if that says anything in itself, it's that students do not want this change. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Katie Clooney, and I have two hats. I'm a parent in the district, and I'm also a first grade teacher at Howard Elementary School. I have sent an email to Superintendent Carpenter, but I wanted to get up tonight, and I appreciate, Shauna, your speech was wonderful, and now I'm going to talk from a parent point of view and a teacher point of view on this school day change. First, for a parent. Those little people from kindergarten to fourth grade do wake up much earlier. And I found as a parent, you are trying to not spend the quality time, you're trying to find things to do with them before school, besides getting to work yourself. And I know there's been before school daycare for the kids, but it seems like they're up and ready to learn and more alert earlier in the morning. Also, the end of the day is hard at parents. You get the children home if they get off the bus anywhere between 4:30. It's almost like you're getting ready to feed them dinner and they're heading to bed. So you do not have that time with them. And that is kind of their downtime in the afternoon. Speaking from a teacher point of view, definitely seeing them come in at 9 o'clock, they are ready to go. They're happy to be at school, we're happy to have them. But by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they are fading unbelievably in the classroom. And I know I can talk for my classroom, and I can talk for kindergarten, some a second. I know by third and fourth grade, yes, they're acclimating a little bit more to it, but by 2 o'clock, their little bodies have focused and kept it so together to think and learn and respond. And by that time, they are ready to let go. Some of it comes with behavior. Some of it comes with just putting their heads down and going to sleep because they've been up since 6 o'clock, and we're having them sit and work. And you try and do more energetic things in the afternoon, but that doesn't always help. And it doesn't, you just get so emotional in the afternoon. It's really not fair. And our motto at Monomoy has been time on task, and it definitely is not time on task from 2 o'clock on to 3:25. You may get a little window of 2:30, but the academic learning in the afternoon is not happening. I know there are so many different ways to look at this time change, and I'm not really sure about the buses in other districts, whether their elementary school shares the buses with the middle school and high school. And I know that's one issue that we do have at Monomoy, is sharing the bus and how are we going to work this out in the bus routes. So I am in favor of the schedule change and starting the children earlier at the elementary school. And I know that it'll affect the high school and the sports, and believe me, I'm a huge sports fan. In high school, I did all the sports and I loved it, and I coach Little League right now, and I love still doing it. But I really think we need to look at the academic piece of it, and the other things hopefully will fall in place. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Jody Blute, and this is my husband, John. We have a 6th grader and a 10th grader, and we also have a senior. One of the points I want to make about the current schedule now, and I know that the district has been very proud of the unprecedented college acceptances that have happened with our senior class this year. They seem to have thrived with the time change, the time that we have now, the start time that we have now. Speaking to Ms. Clooney's point about having them come home from school and they're exhausted, well, you can imagine how exhausted these high schoolers are going to be when they have school all day, field hockey till all hours of the evening, and then homework in high school, because the high schoolers have a lot more homework, and so do the middle schoolers. Speaking to the middle schoolers, which I feel like is a lost part of this whole thing. I heard a lot about elementary and I've heard a lot about high school, but the middle schoolers are being forgotten. My middle schooler, our middle schooler, sorry. Right now, she can go to school till 2:30. She can go to play practice till 4:30, and she can still attend her figure skating in Orleans at 5 or her tap dancing at 4 in Orleans. She will not be able to do an after-school activity and an out-of-school extracurricular activity if the school change goes and she's not getting out of school till 3:30. Because I doubt that figure skating is going to change for us and dance studios are going to change for us. And the other thing I really want to point out is we're Monomoy. We're not Nauset. DY has an early start time, Barnstable. I believe your slideshow showed that all the other schools in the Cape have an early start time. So if we're getting in the Cape League for athletics, why are we trying to be Nauset? Let's be Monomoy. We're here because we want to be at Monomoy. So let's not try to be a school district that we're not. And let's be unique. I think that's all I got.
Well, just about jobs, you know.
Oh, and jobs. And actually, the other thing I wanted to point out was that you, I really do think anyone who doesn't have a high schooler and hasn't seen about the college acceptances for the senior class, it is really impressive and something to be proud of our district and the school that we are. But the other thing I looked into was the American College of Pediatrics, and I'd be happy to email this to you, school committee. But there are benefits to having family dinner, and that is going to be definitely taken advantage of if you do this time change, especially for people who have children who are in extracurricular activities. Teens who have family dinners are less likely to do drugs, less likely to drink alcohol, they're less likely to be overweight, they eat better, they have parent time. So if you look at this study, and I know that your studies by the something with the pediatrics, and this is also, so I'm just trying to say there are benefits to having family dinners, and that is going to be taken away from the middle schoolers and high schoolers if they're involved in extracurricular activities. So, now I'm really done. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to get up and share their thoughts?
Hi, I'm Jeff Ford. I'm a Harwich resident, and I have a daughter that's in second grade now, and I'll have a son who's going into the school system in the fall. And one of the concerns that I had, and maybe looking at it from a different perspective, is we're both working parents, and it certainly makes it a lot more difficult in the afternoons. Our daughter gets, they're getting dropped off at 4, now they're getting dropped off at 3, and so it's almost like you're either forced to do aftercare, which I understand will accommodate this change. I didn't see anything about, I know there are a lot of high school kids that are involved with that, so if it's starting an hour earlier and they're not there, does that mean the aftercare program needs to hire more independent people separate from the high school, and will that result in a different rate change? I mean, obviously it's going to be an hour more than what's offered now. I didn't see anything on that. I don't know if you guys have had any discussions with them or if that's a contract or how that works, but I'd be interested to know how that would work if it did go forward.
Just, I can provide some clarity on that. We spoke yesterday with Ann Emerson, who runs the Harwich aftercare. Chatham's aftercare is run by a different organization. And Ann already has ideas on how she can go and dovetail high school students into it, but we'll definitely have to have other adults that are covering the aftercare during the time that the high schoolers are still in school for that, for that first hour. So whether it's some sort of split shift or whether the high schoolers who are interested, end up having before school tasks, or some of them having before school jobs in a before school care program that we could imagine would have to be in place at the middle school.
Yep.
So So we were starting to flesh out what could it look like, but we've definitely heard from a number of parents just on their need and their concerns on what would the pricing look like.
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously adding a third to what's offered now, and I can't imagine if you did have to bring in new people, that would be something they would maintain at the current rate. So I was just curious how that worked. I mean, we've been involved with that, so I just didn't see anything on that.
Yeah, so we haven't looked at what that pricing structure would be and fleshed that out.
Yeah.
But we're just starting to have the initial conversations on how it could function, and also what we would need to put in place at the middle school for families that
Sure.
would need support there. But we can accommodate that, and there's a number of families that were expressing similar concerns on the price and what would that look like.
Yeah, and just with that, I would just say again, I think a high school student or older students can certainly be dropped off at home versus the younger kids. Obviously the parents are required to be out at the bus stop sometimes 10 minutes early because you never really know when the bus is coming. So it certainly changes the afternoon for working parents, especially if they're both doing that. So that's just my comment on it.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Rachel Barnes. I'm a teacher as well as a parent of an 8th grade student, and it's my class that started all of this. So I wanted to address a little bit about what the kids have started to study and why, and kind of where we are today as a result of that. Students in 8th grade get to select a project for Project Citizen. It's been a tradition in our classrooms for many years, where they choose an issue of their own that they want to investigate. It's not prompted by the teachers, it's brought up by students. And so the original idea for a time change actually came from 8th grade students who are now currently seniors here at the Monomoy High School. The project that they did was investigating what start times did to their academics. And I know that Mr. Carpenter has done a really great job of sharing that it's had real academic benefit for kids, which is really the goal of the school, is to provide quality academic experience for our kids. So in those regards, I'm very glad that you listened to the research of students. But I'm also hearing the concerns from the parents that are here in the community. What we're looking at is a paradigm shift, and paradigm shifts are scary. People don't know what change will bring. I heard concerns about family dinner, and I would hate to give up something like that. I also see myself hanging on to that with every last breath, but I think those are things that people worry about. But I wanted to share, because I was thinking about paradigms and principles. We read this in 8th grade, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. A small hint for everybody, it's effective for everyone. You don't have to be a teenager. But they were talking about some things that people kind of thought about at first, were afraid about at first, or really were dismissive of at first, that changed over time. So here's a couple quotes for us. Number 10 was, there is no reason for any individual to have a computer in their home. And that's from Kenneth Olson, who's the president and founder of Digital Equipment Corporation in 1977. Airplanes are interesting toys, but of no military value. That's from a French military strategist in 1911. Man will never reach the moon regardless of all future scientific advances. Dr. Lee Forrest, the inventor of the audio tube and father of radio, said that in 1967. Television won't be able to hold on to any market it captures after the first 6 months. People get tired of staring at a box. That's from the head of 20th Century Fox in 1946. We don't know what we don't know until we try it. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make tonight. And I'd like to think that the faith that I have in our school committee to examine something and say, you know what, this is really working for our kids, or this really isn't working for our kids, is well-founded. People may be unhappy with it, but I don't think we'll know if we're unhappy with it unless we give it a try. And I think the research really points to good reasons to give it a try. So I really support the school committees and encourage the school committee to follow the original recommendations of my students 5 years ago and support this change. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Massey, and I'm a resident of Harwich. And for purposes of full disclosure, I'm the SRO at the Chatham Elementary School and the Monomoy Middle School. So I'm a police officer and a parent. One thing I'm not is a builder, but I know that you can't build anything without a strong foundation. And I believe that the foundation that something like this, in perhaps a trial basis or in some type of venture like that, would give us some good results as to how it's really working out or how it really will work out. And I think the foundation that we want to emphasize is the academics of children. We go to such great lengths to keep kids in school, to keep them focused, and if this is something that will benefit that, I think it's worthy of at least a try in some way. I'm not 100% for it, I'm not 100% against it, but until we give it a college try, it's something that will always be a mystery to all of us. The research does suggest that it's very good, and in fact, some of the research that I found on my own suggests that changing the start time to accommodate the students' circadian learning cycles and their sleep cycles is the equivalent of improving teachers in your district across the board considerably. So that's where I rest on this issue. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Margaret Fallon, a parent and resident of Harwich. 10 years, thank God you're finally doing this. When she was in kindergarten, I'm like, what the heck, is she still living home? She should be at school. And those teenagers whose butts are trying to be dragged out of bed who don't want to get up are forced to go in early. I think it's wonderful. I would love to say, I wish it was 8:30 to like 3. I heard some of the reasonings why it's not. My daughter is falling asleep at her desk, and those things aren't going to change, and she's up late, and she always will be. She's studious, she's conscientious, and she has to get up at 5 in the morning to finish her homework, and then is leaving early for school. She'll still be up late. I'll still find her at her desk asleep, but maybe she can sleep till 6 or 7 and then come in, and those little kids. So I wish we had enough buses to make it all one time. I was spoiled with that in the community I grew up with. Scott answered some of the questions as to why, right now, why. So I think it's a long time coming, and I think the older kids who don't and can't get up in the studying, I know the sports are going to change. We'll be Cape Cod League. Some of that will be early. Those of us in sports, our kids are getting home sometimes already at midnight. So, you know, there's a little bit here and there, and I'm thrilled with it. So, thanks.
My name is Kristen Hayden. I am also have 2 hats. I'm a parent of a 7th grader and a sophomore, and I'm also the middle school counselor. So one of the things I wanted to just address from the more social perspective is connectedness to school. One of the things that we do really well in our district is we offer a wide variety of enrichments and after-school clubs and activities. So yes, we have kids who are very involved in sports, but for those who aren't, we have music programs and arts programs, and we're keeping our kids connected to our school. So my concern with changing times at the middle and high school level is we would lose some of that opportunity. Right now, they're run by teachers, which I think is a huge benefit because it gives kids another way to connect to their teachers, for teachers to see their students in a different light and make those positive connections. And the research will show that school connectedness is one of the primary factors to not getting involved in some of the risk behavior that we see with students. And as a district, I know that's one of our concerns, of course, as everybody in this building and everyone in this room tonight. So we'd like to keep kids connected to our school in a positive light. I feel for the elementary. My kids were there at one point too. I wish that it wasn't just a direct flip, and maybe that's a source that we could look at. And I wonder, both as a parent and as a district member, if we should not take time and not look for this to be implemented right away in September, because we're standing here in almost May, and take a look at, are there other options for us? Do we need to make this leap in September? Should we be looking at other possibilities for our district that benefits everybody from K to 12? So I'd like to say that. Also, as a parent of a 7th grader, this one class has been the most impacted in our merger. So for these kids, when they left, my daughter was at Harwich Elementary. When she left 4th grade, she went to 5th grade at Harwich Middle. That was a 7 a.m. start. She was there till 6th grade. She switched to Monomoy Middle, changed again, and she's coming up here next year. And I would love for that one grade to have some stability, not just, as a parent, but for everybody else that's here too. So that's something to consider. No, I just wonder if it's not something we should stop and think about for a lot of reasons and not just jump into. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sherry. I have a preschooler and a second grader. I just have a couple of concerns. I don't want my elementary school children riding with middle and high school. I'm a school bus driver for Nauset. I know the trouble the kids can get in as they get older, and I don't want it around my little ones. Also, the morning before and after school program doesn't cater to preschoolers. Sorry. And that is a concern of mine. Also, when you change something that's already been established for like the second graders and the elementary school, how is that going to affect them? My kids already get up at 5 a.m., so I can do my bus route and be at school at 9. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emery Reed. I teach 6th grade.
Nancy Malcolm, 6th grade teacher also.
The only reason we're really here tonight is because we kind of too feel that the middle schoolers' voices aren't being heard. We're hearing a lot about the elementary, what's best for them, what's best for the high school kids. So a couple of surveys were done. One were by faculty that 91% of them did read all the research in the middle school. 65% disagree with the change. That's the data on that. And I thought the best way to address it was, I like to show little big shots. So we had the kids write how they really felt during literacy class. I'm not going to read their letters, but I hope you would. Thank you.
Good evening all. My name is Benjamin Doobie and I am the junior vice president, or soon to be senior vice president, and I'm talking for the high school student body and for the staff that I've surveyed. So today we are here because of the later start times that are proposed. And from when we started at Harwich High School, we had a start time of 7:30. And to 8 o'clock. From the students that I surveyed, that they said that roughly 65% of them said that they feel like that they were more tardy than they were and getting up at an early start time. Now with school ending at 3:30, this proposal will be discriminates against student athletes, with the average dismissal time for student athletes being, including the new Cape League that we are joining, 1:30. The students will now be missing a total of 2 hours of school. And Mr. Carpenter, yourself said that you want to keep sports-related dismissals at a level, to keep students in the classroom. Except this proposal will do the opposite of that. It takes the students out, and I believe that you need to come up with a first solution before we introduce this new type of proposal. Now, I think of kids like Maddie Leonard, who's sitting right in the back there, plays 3 sports, and 1 for each season, who gets through the struggle between the schools and sports, getting home late already as it is, and still manages to get on a roll. How can you expect them to do everything that's expected of them in the classroom when they're going to be missing more school? And for this research that you cited from the University of Minnesota, when we first brought it up, the paper says, and I'm quoting, that more research is needed before we can conclude our hypothesis. In a Psychology Today article written by John Klein, a PhD who works for Sleepless America, mentioned in his article the negative effects. He found that with the parents lacking in the morning, it leads to kids skipping school and being tardy due to a lack of authoritarian presence. With this new start time, many parents will be expected to already be at their jobs and students will lack the motivation to actually get up and do it themselves. Next is low-income families who rely on their kids to work after school will lose hours and be harder to keep or get employment. Also, after-school activities like school sports and clubs will make students come home later, which correlates to students staying up much later to finish their homework, which in the end makes all of this pointless. Also, he included in the article that a later start time lessens the time spent with family, that could distance the relationships between parents and their children. So when making our decision, it should simply come down to, do we want our student athletes, our students that are in the arts and who do other extracurricular activities, do we want them in the classroom longer or take them away of their education, miss a lot of work, and be forced to try and catch up all year long? In my history class, taught by Mr. Houston, we're taught that democracy is a type of government that supports the people's views and listens to their voice. By passing this proposal, you're saying that the student body that I'm representing doesn't have a voice when it comes to the issues that directly affects them. That a majority of the parents that I have spoken to don't know what's right for their child, and their voice doesn't matter. That the majority of the unionized staff doesn't matter. You are all elected to support the views of the people, and the views of the people are against this. Please let our voice be heard. Help students by rejecting the proposal. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, good evening. My name's Bonnie Lodell. I'm a parent of 2 children, an 8th grader and a 5th grader. And I just came back to this. I've been away for a couple of weeks, so I'm just kind of catching up. But I did read a lot of the articles that the superintendent cited, and having read those articles, I truly believe that academics come first, and the lack of sleep does affect our children and their academics, and I think that should be the driving force here. I understand everybody's competing concerns. I understand parents have work schedules that have to be accommodated. I work, my husband works. It was very difficult in elementary school when you had to be at work at 8:15 and your child didn't have to be at school until 9. I understand that. I understand if your child gets out earlier and you work, that's a challenge. There are a lot of challenges here. Both my sons compete in sports. They love sports. My 8th grader is opposed to this change. We've had a couple of discussions about it, and I understand all those competing dynamics, but I do believe instead of following a trend, we should set a trend. And it's not just about following NOSIC. It's about us setting a trend. And having read all the research, I want to say that as a parent, I'm leaning much more to supporting this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Miriam Assad. I'm a senior at Monomoy. I'll be graduating this coming June. Currently, I have a job. I have 2 jobs. I have a job at Monomoy Cooperative Learning Program, the after school at the elementary school. So I work there from 2:30 to 5:30, and then on Mondays I work at Brooks Free Library with kids and I play Legos. So I will be leaving next year, so this doesn't really affect me, but it affects the spirit of the school, it affects the community, and it affects what I believe in. For the past 4 years, every single year I've been in high school, there's been some change to my schedule. I've never had a straight schedule. If we had freshman year, I think we had this like weird time period once a month where we could do homework because they felt sorry for us. They did something like sophomore year where they changed like the whole schedule, and then junior year we came into Monomoy, they changed the time on us, and now they changed, it was 4 blocks and now it's 5 blocks, and I don't even know, I just come to school and hope I'm doing the right thing and I have the homework for the right class. I don't know where my mind's going anymore. But through the years I've noticed that when I did have the earlier times, I was able to work more, support my family. I currently just put myself in a $100,000 loan to go to school next year. And if it wasn't for my job at Monomoy, I don't think I could afford that whatsoever. And I'm hoping I could work there in the summer, the next couple summers to pay that off. But I know if this changes next year, my brother's also an employee, and my father's also retired, so it kind of affects my family. And that being said, if it changes the time, then he can't work, which isn't really good because he needs to pay for his college when he goes to college, so kind of affects me. That also being said, I have 500 hours of volunteer work if I didn't have time after school, I couldn't do that. I also volunteer at the middle school. So I get to see all these like little kids who they're not really sure what they're doing because they're in the middle school and they just joined together with other middle school kids. It's just really awkward because the time's gonna change on them and they know what's going on. So you can't really fool them because they know what's going on. So I'm talking to this like this fifth grader who's just moved here from a different country, doesn't know what she's doing, and she's completely lost. She's used to waking up like how people used to do in the 70s and the 60s where, you know, they used to walk to school at 7 o'clock in the morning and they used to be ready, and by 3 o'clock they were back home working with their family. And it was that true American culture where people worked hard during the day, they worked hard at night, and time, you only have 24 hours in a day. You shouldn't be sleeping. I am a senior, I'm 18 years old, and I will tell you, I would rather wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and start my day than wake up at 8, which I'm doing right now. And I've had more tardies because of that. It could be senioritis, I don't know anymore. And I'm also taking college classes at the 4 Cs to save some of my money, because what am I going to do without a job? And I take the statistics class, and my teacher, Saturday morning, 9 a.m., every 11 minutes, she changes what we do. And this is an idea that you could implement in our schools. What she said was, the time doesn't really matter. I could bring you in at 1 o'clock, I could bring you in at 8 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't matter the time that you come in because your mind is already working. But your mind has to be, you know, things have to be moving and changing every 11 minutes because your time span only goes for 11 minutes. Like, if I move my hands like this, I just changed, 11 minutes have probably gone by, and you probably catch my attention again, right? I've caught your attention, right? All right, so if you implemented that in teachers and changed the day up and changed every 11 minutes, you're gonna have a better outcome with kids than if you said, sleep in for a couple hours, you know, go ahead, sleep. And then stay up at 11 o'clock at night, and that's fine. Like, stay up, do the homework, do the AP classes, do the grades, and get everything we need. And then sleep all you want in the morning, that's okay. It's not about that, it's not about time. It's about how you're gonna spend your day. You have what, 6 hours, roughly? 6 hours in your school day? Change it up, and take that time that you have to teach kids. Don't change the time around that, because they're already committed to you. They've already bowed down, given you their arms, their legs, to volunteer, to spend time in the community, to work. And what you're doing now is taking that time that they've already committed to you outside of school and messed up their whole schedule. That's all I have to say, and I hope that's given some light to what's going on, and I won't be here next year, but I hope the spirit of the school and the hard work that comes with volunteering and working hard that Harwich and Chatham have had, and I hope Monomoy continues to have after I leave, it stays, and I hope the time doesn't really change that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emily Reed, and I teach at Harwich Elementary School. I'm a kindergarten assistant. I think in the elementary school, we're laying the foundation for the rest of these young kids' educational journey in their life. And people have brought up the time spent on homework in high school, but in elementary school, they're learning all of the things that they're going to need later. So when they're done at 2 o'clock, because they can't focus anymore, you're not using your time wisely. So I think that it would be a great idea to change the time so that the elementary school kids can go sooner and learn more in the beginning of the day. So, yeah, thanks.
Hi, my name is Joy Jordan. I currently have 3 at the elementary school and 1 at the middle school, so I can't speak to any of the high school issues. And in fact, my comments are really general, and I would just urge, as others have, to perhaps find a solution that doesn't pit one group against the other, because I feel like that's happening, and I wish that wouldn't happen, because I think you can spend more time researching this and find something that is a little more accommodating to everybody, because as it stands now, it seems like if it goes through, one group's going to be really unhappy and one's going to be really happy, and if it doesn't go through, vice versa. And I would just urge you to take some more time to maybe find something that makes everybody feel happier.
Anyone else that would like to share their thoughts? Well, we thank everyone that got up and spoke. I'll say that we are truly not taking this lightly, and we are looking for the comments like tonight. And we'll take this to heart. Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah,
I just have a question. Have you thought, I know that for like the website.
Please come up to the.
I'm sorry. I didn't know I was allowed to come back. I know for the webs, when you were looking to change the website, you did a survey. And I feel like there was something else you did a survey for. So are you going to do a survey
definitely
for
can.
this? Are you gonna, but like, just so that, there's a lot of people who might be here tonight that don't feel comfortable to get up and speak, but I'm sure are people who have opinions, you know, so I was just wondering if you would consider doing a survey. Maybe?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
How many, we've received a lot of emails from people so far, right? Or,
Yeah, so I think a little, almost pushing 60.
and that was directed at all parents and
staff.
And staff.
And, you know, so, and I would say that those emails, I think very nicely reflect this conversation. I think the balance that we've heard tonight is really what has been coming in. I think all of the points that people have raised have been in those emails, that, there's a number of people that are very passionate one way, and there's a number of people that are very passionate other ways, and there's a handful of people in there that I think, kind of like Joy, we're saying, maybe there's a happy medium in there too, and I think they're all valid, and I believe I've responded back to every single person that's written. I've tried to address the concerns that you've had, and I might not be able to say, Jody, I can promise you dinner time, but I at least can say, things like, next year with the practice fields out front, there's no way we should be starting the field hockey practice at 6 o'clock, and so things like that. And meanwhile, I have Brendan Case, our athletic director, has been reaching out and talking with other ADs at schools that have later starts, and assures me that that we can do this without our student athletes losing more time than what they currently do. It's just being clear with who you're competing with. This is when we start, and we're a school district that puts academics first. We'll be there at such and such a time. We'll start here at such and such a time, and ideally, when you work with your partner schools, you can collaborate and just come up with understandings. This is when they end. This is when we end. So I think that questions on how much is it going to cost, we haven't delved into. I think part of it's waiting to see what direction it goes to. Do I tell Ann Emerson, it's like, okay, I need you to go come up with the finances for a shift, but I think we need to go look at that. So we started the conversation with the principals and Ann yesterday on what do we need to look at, because I know there's going to be families there are some families that, that we're sending emails that they're in favor of this, that are like, I'm going to save money. I'm not going to need the before-school care that I've been having. And for every email that comes in that way, there's somebody else that's emailing, this is going to cost me a little bit more because I'm going to need more aftercare on the other side. And I think that's kind of what the tone has been tonight, that there are different people see it from very different lenses, and it's all very individual. And I think just as Bonnie was mentioning, that there's some differences at home. At my own home, my son feels very strongly that this would be a chance for him to sleep in a little bit more, and my daughter thinks I don't know anything. Probably she'll think that way for the next 20 years. But that's, I think the conversation tonight has been very much what we've seen in the emails, and every email that has come in to me, I've passed on to this group. Yes.
Hi, my name's Grace Royal, and I'm a sophomore, and I've been in the Harwich school system my whole life. And I was at Harwich Middle School from 5th grade to 8th grade, and we started at 7:15 every day and got out at 1:50 every day. And I was wondering if we would think about that for the elementary school, instead of pushing back the whole thing an hour, push that forward an hour and keep the high school as it is. Because even if we got it for like 7:15 and then started the high school at 8:15, that would be much better for the high school students. So I was just putting that idea out.
I actually just have a question. Do you have a timeline when you will be making this decision and where it's going to take place, maybe in September?
I think, at least what I've shared with the chair, I think that for logistical purposes, if we are going to change for next year, we would have to make a decision by our last school committee meeting of May, because shortly after that, I would need to be sending out, or my staff would be sending out to you all, what buses, are you going to need the bus next year? And are you going to need before school and after school care? And all of those are tied to what this is. So the before school and after school care, they can ramp up in the morning or afternoon to meet their staff over the course of the summer. And when we came together as a district, we had to do that over the course of the summer, and can do it again. So, but logistically, and we want to give, I want to give everybody a chance to either speak here, email, and have a voice so that we have that balance.
I think there is some logistics for parents too that, might have to really tweak their schedule. So yeah, if it's end of May, that's actually a reasonable time. So thank you.
Should we invite everybody
to the music room?
All right.
So is it next week, or is it the week, the next meeting, or the week meeting after that important speaker's coming? There's a conflict with our school committee on a night that Dr. Hill's speaking, and I'm asking that we can move it. So I am respectfully asking us to change that school committee meeting to either after that's over with, if we have a light meeting, or a different time, because...
That can happen on our next meeting. This is the forum.
All right.
That's school committee business.
On the forum then, I'd like for us to decide this next meeting that we have, because rather than put it off, we've got so many things on.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to make a point about the public forum and our regular meeting, excuse me, for people who are still here, and people who decide they might want to stay. We have a policy that we don't speak, the school committee doesn't speak on issues until it's scheduled to speak on issues. So I have no idea whether any of my fellow school committee members have any thoughts they want to share with you tonight, but I can tell you that if they do, it will happen as our agenda requires. And since the public forum is from 6 to 7, and we have published in the newspaper that we won't be talking about this issue until after our meeting starts at 7, I would invite people to consider staying for our meeting so that in case any of my fellow members have any thoughts, you can hear them. So that's all, I just want to make that clear.
And as I put out in the email to parents, the committee will not be making a decision tonight, one way or the other. It would be a discussion, their reflection potentially on what they've heard or what they've read from the emails that I passed on to them.
Sometimes we have a problem that when we have a public comment period at every meeting, we don't know what people are going to say. But we're not really allowed to talk about anything that's not on our agenda. So tonight we have both scheduled. For once, we have everything scheduled at the right time. So we have your forum, and then we have our forum starting at 7 o'clock. So I hope some people will stay, because I'm sure people have very clever things to say. Not me.
It has an incentive to get people to stay. The jazz band is going to be playing for us at 7 o'clock in the music room, and everyone is invited to come hear a great group of students perform.
And then we'll be reconvening here.
Right. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the April 27th, 2016 Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting. Calling the meeting to order at a little late, 7:30. We were just serenaded by the high school jazz band, and I tell you, that's a fantastic group of kids. So, first on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from April 13th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections, additions, changes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Yes, abstention. One abstention. Okay. Moving on, we have the spotlight of what's happening at Harwich Elementary School.
You'll have the privilege of hearing from 3 different student council members that the board voted to represent us today. And on that note, they've arrived, so I'm going to step aside and let them take over.
I am Camden Haley Joey Waz, and I am a student council representative from Mrs. Keith's 4th grade classroom. My name is Abigail Constein, and I am from Harwich Elementary School. I'm in Miss Crowley's 4th grade classroom, and I'm a student rep from student council.
Hello, my name is Eddie. I am in Miss Crowley's 4th grade class, and I am here to, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about how Life Touch is gonna take more pictures out, since the quality concerns were so. Life Touch took spring pictures at the end of February, but there was some concerns with the quality and process, so they have agreed to come back on May 24th to offer results. We had asked Mr. Heim if we could get a grade level picture as seniors in 4th grade, and are happy to hear this week that they will take one of the 4th grade class also that day, and maybe on the week. Also, to celebrate Read Across America and Dr. Seuss's birthday, we had guest readers throughout the week visit our classrooms to read their favorite Dr. Seuss book. We also had a school-wide assembly at the end of the week. First graders read Sam I Am. We saw projected in the gym and heard Oh, the Places We'll Go. We also heard the advanced chorus sing, and we sang along some songs Mr. Russell, our music teacher, taught us.
Mr. Hine had grade level assemblies with us and talked about the new themes of the month, respect and trustworthiness. We had a Title I math night with 40 students and parents attending.
We had preschool screenings in March, and we will have kindergarten screenings at the end of May. Second grade students in Mrs. Simmons and Mrs. Ferrulo's class delivered our school's donations of food and clothing when they visited the family pantry of Cape Cod and Harwich earlier this month. The last two second grade classrooms plan to visit and learn about the pantry in June. They will once again deliver any and all of the school's donations.
Third and fourth graders are taking park practice tests this week. I lost myself. Third and fourth graders are taking practice park tests this week to see how the online program works. We will be starting the real text next week. Each class will take 2 sessions a week. This year, our lunch and special schedules are not changing, and we hope to be able to take the test in our classroom next year.
Our new sign is up front of the school, and old trees have been cut down. We have been discussing landscape ideas with Mr. Hine at our student council meeting. We are talking about maybe adding new landscaping around the school. This is what we have been doing at Harvard.
Thank you very much for that report, and I will recognize that it's not easy to get up there and do that, and you all did a fantastic job. We are going to take something out of order on our agenda this evening. We're going to have a presentation by the Monomoy Regional High School school trip to Spain.
Hello everyone, I'm Elizabeth Hoff and I teach Spanish here at Monomoy High School.
I'm Leslie Chiswick, I'm a speech and language pathologist at Monomoy High.
And we are excited to present an opportunity that is 7 years in the making. And we're looking for support for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do a school-to-school exchange with a school that we've been in contact with, a school that we've been Skyping with and for years, and writing pen pal letters, and we've put pictures on the Friday Focuses, and we've really connected the community with this endeavor as well, and Spain as well. So we've come today to answer any questions, to discuss this opportunity for not only the students, the faculty, the staff, but also the community, the families, this opportunity that we can really serve as ambassadors to, the world, and also to showcase how beautiful Cape Cod is and what we have to offer. And then, of course, it's a reciprocal exchange, so they would do the same for us. So I submitted information to you about our itinerary. It would be a 2-week exchange, 16 days, because 2 days of that would be flying. Pretty much your whole day is flying and traveling. And we really, they do a lot of traveling abroad over there. They do a lot of exchanges with other schools, and so they're used to these types of hosting and staying kinds of things. And so we really feel like it's time to take this to the next level, if at all possible. And they're very excited. We just have been Skyping in classes, and I have a few students here today that are excited about this opportunity and could serve as speakers on the behalf of the experience they've had, even just taking their language to the next level, and how fun it's been for them to just connect with a real face and learn and speak and learn with students that are just like them. It just takes everything to a whole new, with a whole new perspective. So we're just open for discussion.
How does the exchange work? You're going for 2 weeks there, and they're gonna go and off 2 weeks here?
So they would come at the end of September for 2 weeks, and they would stay with our families, and then at the, so we would, our plan is, they would spend a couple of days in school, and our experience with this, they'll be shadowing their host student, and then we would plan 5 days of showcasing activities around the Cape, or even maybe a trip, you know, to Boston, something like that. And then at the end of their stay, they would go to New York, something that the travel agency has planned separate. That was something this group specifically wanted to do. And we really like this tour company. Yesterday we met with our representative. She flew in from Spain, and we had a chance to really speak with her about this process. And it's a company that's very flexible, so we have a lot of leeway with if the family come, or if the students come, and we are organizing what they're going to experience while they're here. So if they show, you know, they have some input, whereas sometimes with tours that our school has taken in the past, it's kind of a package deal and you can't really pick and choose, and this is really a la carte. We can really fit it to suit what they want to do and see, and the same with us while we're there. Yes. Yeah.
Sure. The selected students from Monomoy in turn would spend a week or 10 days in Spain?
Well, we would like to do an equal exchange, so they would be here for 2 weeks, and then we would be there for 2 weeks, plus the 2 days of travel, so 16 days total. But we would go, when we fly in, the plan would be that we would spend a couple of days in Madrid, because we would fly straight into Madrid, and we would have a tour guide there, and they would show us all of the wonderful sights to see and experiences to experience when we're there. And then we would take a train to Vigo, which is north of Portugal, and meet our families, and then begin our exchange that way. And then we really like to have this time, that amount of time, because we want a full weekend with our families. I really feel like that, just as an exchange student, I was an exchange student, students that have working families, they don't get the same experience to spend time with the family like they would get on a weekend. So being able to take the time off and take a day trip and really relax is something we're really looking forward to.
A follow-up, how many youngsters from Monomoy would you expect to be able to take, and in what grade level and what scholarship in Spanish would they be required?
Well, we've kind of been discussing that a little bit since this is new. It definitely would be for existing students. It would not be for incoming 8th graders or anything like that. And we're connecting with the other students in Spain right now, so they will get to know them face to face on the screen. We'll be writing pen pal letters, and I'm opening it to 8th, 9th, 10th, whoever is interested in going, because we've been doing these connections for so many years. We've got seniors, obviously they wouldn't be going, but 11th graders who have friends that are over there, and so it could potentially be 9th grade to 11th grade, or 12th grade next year.
Last question. In theory, a youngster who would be coming here from Spain, staying at a given home, would it be that family's child who would go back to Spain to stay?
Yes,
What
it
a
would be.
brilliant idea. That's brilliant.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a
So
reciprocal exchange. And that's where you get, I want you to treat my child the same, and I will treat your child the same way. So there's a lot of, just a lot of camaraderie that's built, and that's why we really want to show our guests such a wonderful time here while they're here, so that I think that builds that relationship and that sense of respect, so that we can receive similar experiences when we're there as well.
Sure.
So, I like this idea. My daughter, when she was when she was 15, went abroad, and it was a great experience. But that was with AFS. So what this is, it would be limited then by the nature of the home exchanges to students that can do the reciprocity of having somebody in their own home.
That is somewhat correct, because we have a lot of flexibility. We also have some students here in our school that have said that they would be willing to host 2 or 3 extra students from Spain if it meant that we could, you know, include more people. So that's really nice. Not all of us have the larger homes or even an extra room, so knowing that we have a community of students that are interested in families that are interested in hosting more, that would, and the students will have an opportunity to see each other every day at school and get together, you know, for dinners and whatnot in the evening and on weekends, so nobody will ever be doing this on their
I
own.
love this idea. Will there be some way we will be able to check with the school these kids go to, or something for some idea that these are safe homes for the kids to be in?
Yes, so we Skype a lot with them, and the parents will have an opportunity to also Skype with them and get to know them and write letters and a very extensive application process, and we will be there as well. So if anything, the reciprocity is what is so powerful in this. We will treat you the way that we would like to be treated, and I think that's really important. That's what our tour consultant explained to us, that there really aren't any issues with safety or concerns like you were mentioning, because they want the same experience for their child. So they do treat them like family and show them, you know, the respect just like a family member would. And we will be there and easy to contact should anything arise, and obviously familiar faces and easy contact so that we can make changes if something were to come up.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I think it's great. It's great too.
My question is, having been a host parent, is there a vetting process on their end and on our end? I know you're talking about the reciprocity and wanting to do right by the kids because you want your child taken care of, but is there a formal vetting process by either the school there or the travel agency or?
Our tour consultant came to see us yesterday, and she said that it really isn't like, there's no background checks like how we can do, do police report checks and things like that. It's not the same kind of sentiment over there. They don't have the same kind of process, but the families will have, like I said, extensive opportunities to communicate. And if they get a sense that maybe this isn't a right fit for me, or this isn't something that I'm really interested in, obviously our teacher contact over there has our best interest at heart, as we will for them. So I do not believe, since I've known him for 7 years, that he would put us in any sort of situation or put us with any families that he had any doubt about, that these are very solid connections and people who, you could trust your children with.
Just to follow up on what you were saying, it's not a vetting process, but I did remember reading that the parents can communicate with the parents via Skype.
Right, and I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping for meetings where we can do that. Of course, there's a time change that we have to be considerate of, but we've been Skyping in the mornings, so even just coming into school or doing something like that, we can make this happen where parents can. That's the nice thing about the technology, is it takes away. You can ask as many questions as you want, and we want to be as real and honest about this experience, and so that everybody knows there aren't any surprises when we get over there. Oh, you're a smoker. Well, or you have cats and I'm allergic to cats. That is eliminated when we're able to have this open communication for so long, and I think that's a bonus to this.
assuming the right kids are brought back to the right parents, and assuming most of the parents would like that. What occurs to make certain those 7, 12, 14 boys and girls of ours, they're not that far behind in the other subjects when they get back here?
Oh, right, so, right, they would be missing 5 school days, and what's nice about that is our Spanish students will be having homework on those 5 school days as well. So while our Spanish students are doing their homework, our American students will be doing their homework. There is internet available so they can check into Google Classroom or a class notes page and whatnot, and they'll be at school all day some of those days too, so plenty of time to, they'll know about it ahead of time. So these are the type of students those students that are attracted to this type of exchange would probably be the students who are going to go above and beyond to get their assignments ahead of time, possibly even do them early, or do them when their Spanish host brother or sister are doing their homework too.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go into public comment, Mr. Jaworski has asked that he may have a few minutes of time to make a comment.
I assumed this was my last meeting, but I was informed prior to this meeting that I probably have one more meeting before I retire from the regional school committee. So I have a few comments I'd like to make. Just think it's my last meeting. You may see me again in a couple of weeks.
Then you're not here the next.
That's right. As you all know, I went through open heart surgery in December. Everything is going along fine. I have the only comedic heart surgeon in the world. Thank God he's got hands of gold, but he's the only heart person I've ever met that tells a joke every time I see him. I apologize to the committee for my lack of participation on the committee for God knows how long. I know it's been longer than 12 weeks. But they told me, the recovery takes 12 weeks. My cardiologist looked at me and he said, they're lying to you. It takes about a year. So I am still recovering and everything's going along fine. I'd like to thank the residents of Harwich and Chatham for their support over the years I've been here. I began my journey in Harwich in '72. After my retirement from teaching, I continued in education and was elected to the Harwich School Committee. I then became a member of the Monomoy Regional School Committee that formed the new region. And I have been a member ever since. I consider myself a very lucky man. I have worked and achieved my goal of forming a regional school district which will greatly benefit students of all ages in both communities. I'll skip a little story in there, it's really not interesting.
Yeah, we'd like to hear it.
As I'm leaving, I'd like to thank Superintendent Carpenter for his leadership. The ship is headed in the right direction. I was hoping that wouldn't happen. That's why I wrote it down. I figured it's easier. I will no longer be a member of the committee, but when there is a need for support, for concerns, my voice will be heard loud and clear. Thank you for helping to give my life meaning.
You'll save our hot shots till your last meeting. Next on the...
I would just like to say, having served with Ed on the Harwich School Committee before this, and now the Monomoy School Committee, I just want to say, that the dedication you've shown to be serving here is just wonderful, and having worked in the schools prior to this as a guidance counselor and child teacher, I just think you brought a lot to us. So, you know, thank you. You know, you have an ear of the community. It's been wonderful having you on.
Thank you, Sharon.
Next on the agenda is public comment. And remind those that wish to speak that to limit yourself to 5 minutes. Anyone like to speak to the committee?
Hi. Hi, my name is Jason Masiello, and I'm a freshman at Monomoy Regional. A few weeks ago, we were informed that our head coach, Adam Rose, was released, and it shocked all of us. I'm pretty upset about it. The Rose family's been in this community for many years. Both Glenn and Adam Rose decided to come back and give back to our community when they could have taken their careers elsewhere. It's just something we appreciate on a daily basis. Adam Rose is a great person, and he treats our team as if we were family, as any head coach would. Ever since seeing my first game in 6th grade, I knew I wanted to play for him, and the opportunity for me to play for a great coach like Adam has been taken. Coach Rose has taught me life lessons and discipline. Adam Rose has shaped who my teammates and I will be as young men, and it's going to be sad to see him leave if he does. As a school, we constantly face the fact that we lose kids to schools like DY and Nauset, and this is just another rash decision why kids would want to leave. This is much bigger than basketball, and losing Adam Rose is not only losing a coach, it's losing a role model and a friend. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Mazulis, a junior at Monomoy High, and we found out about a month ago that Coach Rose had been released as the varsity coach, and just about the whole team was devastated at this loss. And we started an online petition, and we have 630 signatures to keep Adam Rose as our varsity coach. And administration has told us when we asked them why Adam has been released that they're doing what's best for us as students, but clearly that's not what we want as players. And another comment that administration makes when we ask why he's been released, that everybody likes him, is that it's a personnel matter and that they won't comment. And we feel as players that that's not a good reason to release our coach. And we come in front of the school board to find answers for why our coach has been released. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Max Liska, and I'm a sophomore at Monomoy High. And Coach Rose's releasing was really upsetting to me because Coach Rose has been there for me for so long, and it's not even in basketball. Like last October, I got really sick, and I got diagnosed with something called nephrotic syndrome. And like it was really hard every day because I was in the hospital, and it was like almost basketball season. So I was stressed, but Coach Rose told me he wasn't stressed about basketball at all. He would just text me every day to see how I was doing, to make sure like my family was okay, and I was okay, to make sure I was healing right. Like it wasn't even on the basketball level, it was just on a friendship. Like he's just always here for everybody. He always makes sure everybody's doing well. So to get rid of somebody who just wants to make sure everybody's on the same page constantly just wouldn't really make any sense. So I don't see why getting rid of Coach Rose would help anything go in the right direction, since he's such a great player, coach, and person.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anyone else like to make a comment?
My name is Kathy Masiello, and I'm mother to Jason. I have a petition to present to you all with the over 600 names, and I think it represents the scope of the impact of the decision that was made, so I'd like to formally give that to you. Also, personally, I would like to learn a little bit more about the procedure for hiring coaches, because the statement that the positions are opened at the end of the season is really confusing to me. I'm experienced as being an athletic director, and in my case, I would lock down my coaches right after the season, you know, to make sure that they were on board for the next season. And what they would do is what Coach Rose has done naturally is, you know, groom the middle school program, condition your team in the off season. He coaches AAU. He was developing a program which takes, you know, a landslide to do. It goes beyond the wins and losses, and you're going to have a stream of time when you're not going to have a lot of wins. He's developing this program from the middle school up. Everyone knows him. Everyone loves him. I also was wondering if coaches are evaluated, and if you do these things, then I just don't know, and I don't know about the transparency about what you do or don't do. But Coach Rose was so blindsided by this decision, and so was the rest of us, unbelievably blindsided. I think that's unfair to him. I think he deserved more than that. I also am curious as to when you post positions, is there an internal posting or an external posting, or if you want the coach back, it stays internal, it doesn't go external? When does it get posted? DY has their winter sports posted already. I haven't seen ours. So is there somebody in mind and we put it up at the last minute and we close that window? I just don't know. I don't know if you know. Also, for the next coach that does come in, the good decision was made, in my opinion, to move us to the Cape Cod and Islands League. But honestly, I could coach this team next year and we're going to get more wins. So if that was done for that reason, that's disappointing, because all of the other attributes those kids talked about tonight, being a role model, they just can't be duplicated. And unless you're bringing in that, which are wins and losses, that's great. But we have a known entity right now, and I hate to let him go. If it's also true that he can reapply, then I would hope those 600 and something names are in your mind when he does. Thank you.
Just to let people know, coaches at Monomoy, it's annual appointments. So coaches reapply for positions. They are evaluated by the athletic director in conjunction with the principal in that building, and so it is. And they are positions that get posted online, for people to apply for, and I'm sensitive to what the boys said. Just that that personnel decisions are things that that we can't talk about in a public setting for for a variety of reasons.
Anyone else wish to make a comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the student representative report. Thank you.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Great. Okay, so what's going on at the high school lately? So today we had a pep rally, the last pep rally of the year, hosted by student council. It was a great time as usual. We also had Spirit Week going on this week. Today we had Monomoy Spirit Day. We have other things going on throughout the week. Also upcoming, we have the senior boat cruise as a final hurrah for the senior class. Also, speaking of sports, golf, baseball, softball, and tennis still remain undefeated in our seasons, which is really exciting to see all the programs continue to grow and do well. Also, in the next 2 weeks, sophomores, juniors, and seniors will be taking AP tests for a variety of subjects: calculus, psychology, statistics, etc. Also, over vacation, there were several students that went on an EF tour to London, which was really exciting. Also, before vacation, I believe I had mentioned this at the last school committee meeting, but we had the Credit for Life Fair for seniors, where we had people from the community come in to represent their fields, and seniors were placed with wherever they picked to talk to people about what they might want to do when they grow up, and basically what we went through and what our salary would be, and we paid all of our bills, which was eye-opening to say the least. Also, with this week, we have all of our seniors committing to school by May 1st, so it's kind of an exciting week. And finally, I just want to mention, before vacation, we celebrated a huge milestone for us here with Mr. Houston running his 30th marathon. And we had a bunch of kids during Take 5. Even with that arm of his, he persevered. But we we had a bunch of kids during Take 5. They played music and we cheered him on to, and we all got every kid in the school. We all got stickers with that said "Go Mr. Houston" with his number on it. So that was really nice to see. So thank you very much.
How are the Lady Sharks doing on the links?
Oh, we're doing so well. I said we're undefeated. It's
You
fun.
just said the golf team. You didn't say boys or girls.
Oh, it's girls in the spring, boys in the fall. So right now we're girls. Yeah. We're doing well.
Very
We're
good.
hanging in there. Yeah. Thank you.
On this, what was it, Credit for Life?
Yes.
I understand this was the first year this has happened.
Yes,
has
yes.
happened in Harwich. So is there would that be something you would like to say for an annual experience?
Oh my goodness, yes. I believe it was, they do it at DY. It was sponsored by the Cape Cod 5.
Yes.
Oh, it was very, very interesting. Like I said, we went through rent and insurance and groceries. Who would have thought that $500 for groceries a month?
Everybody else in the room.
Is there a mechanism to request that to be done annually?
I don't know. I would say that it was so successful that I would hope that and believe that the guidance department would continue to do it. I know that they were very enthusiastic about it.
That's who started it, was the guidance department.
I believe so. I think this police guidance counselor, she's working with UI, I'm not sure she's here, so I think she maybe she went through. Yeah, it was
Great.
great. Thank you. Thanks.
We'll move on to recognitions.
Just one quick one. I just want to recognize the Art of Charity for a donation that they have made. They've donated an additional $1,800 to support our middle school drama program that will help support some of the lighting and sound system updates, repairs that they're using for their Lion King production that's upcoming. So again, I think it was our last school committee meeting or the meeting before, we shared many of the grants that entities in our community have provided. But again, our charity stepped forward to really support a good cause here.
Very good. We move on to reports and discussions. And we've already taken care of the Spain trip, so we'll go on to school start times.
Okay. Question, that we're going to vote on the Spain trip next week, next meeting?
Yeah, we won't move on this tonight.
Right.
So is this the appropriate time to ask that our next school committee meeting that we both have this on it, to vote on it, so they'll have time to plan? Could we schedule it for the next school committee meeting that we have?
To vote
To
on?
vote on this, while it's fresh in our mind, the start time.
No, we're going to go to the next one, the last meeting in May. so that there's further opportunity for people to come forward and
Okay.
bring their concerns, or how they, approval of it.
Will we have the time for that to be at 6 o'clock, or will we have that time during our regularly scheduled meeting?
At this point, probably will just be during the regular committee.
Okay. Would this be the time for me to ask that we change the May 11th meeting?
The date?
The date, so we could attend if we want to. Dr. Hill is speaking on, what is it, substance abuse?
So May 11th, there is a speaker who will be speaking here at the high school. I'll actually be introducing him at 6:30. And again, he's, Dr. Kevin Hill's a known authority on substance use and abuse. And again, as part of things that, different forums that we want to have to support initiatives addressing concerns raised in the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. This is one of those. And again, his calendar of availability just happened to coincide with the school committee meeting. So I think what Sharon's asking is, potentially for us to change the date of the 11th to accommodate that.
I would also be in favor of that. I would like to attend that as a parent and also for my work.
I would like to also attend that.
Suggestions on alternate meet time?
The
Because
next
I know
one.
everybody has busy schedules.
The following.
May
That
18th.
would put 2 meetings in a row, 18th, 25th.
You want to
So why don't we
suggest that
go
off?
to the 4th?
That would put 2 meetings in a row this week and next week.
It is, isn't it? 2 in a row.
What time would the youth risk forum begin?
It would be a 6:30, and maybe it might run till 8 o'clock, 8:30.
No, we are not meeting after.
You answered the question. If there was a possibility of a thin agenda.
As long as we're done by midnight, right?
Well, we're getting to that.
Not.
Push our luck anyway.
Is there another night that week? We could do
Yeah, could anybody switch
Tuesday.
to
10 or 12.
Tuesday or Thursday?
I can't do Thursday.
Tuesday?
I could do Monday.
Monday's fine too.
Monday's fine with me, Tuesday's fine with me.
Can't do Monday. Got a band night. Rehearsal.
Okay, how about the following Wednesday then?
That would be 2 weeks in a row.
That's all right.
Oh, is Tuesday a possibility, or does somebody say no on Tuesday? Tuesday?
Tuesday, May 10th.
Tuesday.
I have plans, but I can change them.
Tuesday's
I'm free
fine.
on Tuesday.
I'm just trying to make sure. We're talking Tuesday, the 10th.
10th.
Is there a possibility that Chatham Town meeting will?
Oh, yeah, 2-nighter.
So we have, we're entering into our town meeting double feature over the next 2 weeks.
And Thursday's out, somebody said?
I'm away Thursday.
I mean, could we scoot out of the meeting with, I can't remember if you said Mr. or Dr. Hill,
Doctor.
at 7:30? And start our meeting at 7:30?
Or 8 o'clock.
That would be an hour.
I think it would be okay if we shift. I don't think it's problematic that we have 2 meetings in a row.
Can everybody make the 18th?
When are general elections?
Tuesday.
It's just trying to.
This may be my last meeting.
You're not getting it out of that easy.
We have to have the roast.
The 18th?
Do I have a motion?
May 18th.
I make a motion to move our next meeting to May 18th.
Does that work for you, Laney?
Oh, yes.
Where are you going, lady?
Are you leaving early? Go to bed
Get
early.
up early.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Now to go and talk about school start times. Does anybody have any input they want to share, or?
I would like to say that I empathize and can relate to all the different sides that were presented tonight. I have 3 sons in the school district, one who is here at the high school, one who is in middle school, and one who's in first grade at Chatham Elementary School. And I can see all sides of it. I do feel very strongly, though, that those little ones are just losing a lot of critical academic time. I was there whenever we had our book fair, and I was delivering books, and I couldn't believe that at 1:40 the second graders were at lunch. You know, it's a late day for them. And I believe Robin said that when she did an informal poll among the teachers, all of those at Chatham Elementary School were in favor of the switch because they really feel that after 2:30 they're toast. And to lose that academic time every day, 5 days in a row, I think is really something that we need to look at. That being said, I don't know that we need to be married to these 2 times, and maybe there is some kind of compromise that can be made in the middle.
Sure.
And I would say that I'm hugely grateful that we're really taking time to hear people on this. When I only heard the research in isolation, I was like, I will definitely vote for this because, you know, academics and school. And also I have a grandson in kindergarten, and I had been a teacher, and see how difficult for many, not all, children at those young ages, it's hard. But I have a granddaughter in 5th grade. So I picked her up on Monday, and instead of play rehearsal going to 4:30, it went to 5 because we're getting near playtime. And then Little League starts at 5:30, so granola bar and juice on the way over there. By the time that gets over with, there's time to shower and do some homework. There'd be no way she could sleep in the morning. With her mother and her little brother up, there'd be no chance at all for her to be able to sleep in. So I just don't know. I think that the research, it makes a lot of sense, but I just don't know if it's practical with everybody's lives. So I'm, you know, listening to this, and the star of the night was our students, to be able to get up, our teachers too, but to hear students articulate, whichever side they're on, they did a great job, I think. So we should be proud of that.
Okay.
Well, I don't have any children or grandchildren in any of those schools anymore, so I don't have a personal interest in how the outcome comes out. It's difficult, as we've all made clear, it's difficult because both sides have very good arguments between the elementary school and the high school, and I know we'll give it a lot of consideration because we care greatly for both systems, but I particularly am concerned, it passed through here very quickly, but there was a survey of middle school teachers, and it went by me quickly, but I believe that the point of that was that the vast majority of middle school teachers are against it as well. And I'd like to get as much information as we can as to why that is. I mean, it's obvious that we, you know, if we have a middle school that runs from 5th grade to 7th grade, you have kids that are barely out of elementary school and kids who, some of whom were probably mature enough to be in high school. And, you know, it seems like, obviously they're, no pun intended, they're stuck in the middle of of the two issues. And I don't know what we can do about that. I know we've had I think my question has been answered previously about the issue of a bus schedule, not really allowing for, to have the middle school have their own, time. But I'd like to explore more about why the middle school teachers are so against it. If it's just simply because the fifth graders are too young to be on the high school schedule, and the high school kids, the seventh graders are too old to be on the elementary school. I mean, that's a good explanation, but I'd like to know if there's more as to why that. And I don't know, we had I mentioned this when we had the presentation at the last meeting, that with the information that was provided to us, the study information, the 11-year-olds, I believe they suggested should be at the elementary school level, and I was told that the fifth graders in particular are 10 and 11 years old, right? So I haven't formed an opinion on any of this yet, but I'm very concerned about how this affects the middle school, and concerned that if we can't make it not adversely affect the middle school, then I'm not sure I'd support any change at all. So that's my initial reaction.
I think the points, I heard what everybody said, and I can see, the different sides of it, just as Amy said. I think the points that were most important were that, not to restate what you said, but that it seems like it's really not going to work for the middle school to change their times. As far as high school, it seems there's really a big split for and against. And it seems, I'm just saying in general, what I've heard from community members and what we've seen from emails and so forth, the information that we've received, is that it seems like it's a good idea for elementary school to start earlier. And the other two, well, high school is a mixed bag, and middle school, it seems that, we see from the teachers and parents that have spoken that it seems like not a good idea to change the start times. And if we're saying that because of the busing situation, we'd have to basically take the middle school and high school and have them start at the same time, then maybe we need to think outside the box and look at this and see if we can find another solution. If it is the best thing to change the high school start times, it doesn't mean we have to change the middle school also, if we find a solution to the busing situation. I mean, there's got to be a solution, we just need to look for it. The other thing that I think is important is that it's already almost May. This is such a short time frame to have everybody adjust to changing start times. If we're going to do this, let's put it off. As Joy said, I think that was a really good point. There's not enough time. Maybe the Monomoy Cooperative Learning Program is prepared to adjust to this change, coming up in September, but I know that Monomoy Community Services already has their schedule all set for the fall and is having people sign up. I mean, it's so late in the game, and it's such a short time for people to adjust. Working parents, have to make different arrangements. There are a lot of different arrangements that will have to be made. So those are the two things that I wanted to get across, is that I think, we should, if we're going to make a change, put it off until later. And I think we should really take the time and study this and make sure if we're going to make a change, it's the right one.
Sure.
I really don't think there's that much of a rush. Only my thought, I appreciate the input also. On the other hand, there are examples. I don't know how far research points you in a direction, but the practical life of individual people, we're all impacted in all the villages and towns in the states, and it works or it doesn't work. Change is never easy. 4, 5, or 6 years ago, a lot of people in town and in Chatham didn't expect regionalization to work. That was a big change. And yet, by and large, I'd give it an 85, B+, after 2 or 3 years. And a lot of people were frightened with that. So I wouldn't reject the idea. As a matter of fact, I like the idea of what it says about elementary kids. That I'm not an elementary guy, and yet to hear that I happen to be one of those volunteers that read in the classroom in the first grade over here during Dr. Seuss. And a different world for me. It was a treat to be in there. And yet, I can buy that elementary teachers by 1:30, 1:45, 3 o'clock, their kids probably are turning towards nap in their heads. Middle, I lived my 40 years in middle school experience. I think the kids are very flexible, either what they have or what could change take place. So we're all about academic achievement, and yet over the years, look how much we've had to make certain that early morning needs of moms and dads are necessary in taking care of their kids. Late afternoon needs of moms and dads. Terrific stuff that schools have had to respond to. And yet, no change sometimes is just as negative as making a bad decision. So I think in the next few weeks, a lot has to be considered pro and con. I myself would lean towards strike while the iron's hot. I think that there's more positive, and yet I also agree with Amy about the idea, is there a reasonable compromise that could be launched? And I think there is time if you all get towards it and we're not too late. Whether it's an 8:30 time where it splits the difference and gets ourselves in a position, maybe that's something to look at, that splits the difference between the parents' needs as well as looking towards having kids grow better in school because of not starting so early. So I haven't finalized in my head, but that's kind of where I am.
Next. I agree with what everybody has said. I mentioned this last time, that one of my biggest concerns that I eventually got to after a lot of thought was the elementary school and that impact. And those kids need to start earlier and finish earlier than they are right now for multiple reasons that a lot of people have already mentioned. And then I also look at the high school, which had a couple of questions, that starting later, more beneficial for them, because I don't think it's necessarily that kids won't stay up later because they have to get up earlier. I think it's their natural bodies are wanting to stay up later. And so they're staying up later naturally, regardless of what activities they have. And so that their sleep has shifted from, instead of going to bed at 9 o'clock, which is my ideal, to 11 o'clock, and so they need that extra sleep. And so it's not that they're going to be staying up later because they have homework to finish. My understanding of the research is that their clocks have just shifted, and that's just when they naturally want to go to sleep, and then they need to sleep later into the mornings. And in terms of the athletics, a lot of the students brought up the point that even though moving to the Cape and Islands League, the start times for the games are still going to be earlier to having to be pulled out of school early. So I guess that's more of a question, if, remembering all the teams on the Cape and Islands League, because it's different now than it was 25 years ago. So Sturgis, East and West, CCA, Falmouth Academy.
Is Brendan still here?
Does anybody know all the Cape and Islands League teams? So, all on Cape? Nobody even pretending to be on the Cape?
The islands.
Well, I mean, like, nobody over the bridge, even though they think they're Cape Cod.
There's no bridge to my Spanish.
No wonder.
Tony.
It does, but just, we also have to keep in mind, joining the Cape and Islands League doesn't mean that
You might still
we
play
might
other
not have
teams.
some games that are over the bridge to fill out a schedule.
Okay.
But the bulk of the travel is going to be a lot shorter moving from Cape and Islands.
And do you know, or does anybody know, when students leave school currently? So school gets out now at 2:30. Do they leave school like at 1:30 to get to a 3:30 game? I don't know. I only have a middle school. You guys know?
No, we don't have any 3:30 games. I mean, most of them start at 4, so like if we had a game in fall, we usually get dismissed at 1:30 and then the bus leaves by 1:40.
So you about an hour early?
Yeah.
Is probably most of the time. Okay.
If you say Hull,
Hull, yes.
it's pretty
That
far.
was like our furthest game.
Okay, thank you. So I feel that the majority of the games, the students wouldn't have to be dismissed early in order to get to their sporting events. I do have some knowledge and some conversations at my house. My husband's a teacher at one of the schools that starts 8:20-ish, and he's, and they don't get out of school till 3:15-ish. So, and he doesn't ever have complaints. I mean, they have students leaving early as well, but I don't think that's something that's ever going to stop. I think kids are always going to have to leave a little early at some point with the athletics. But I agree with the middle school. I think the middle school is in the middle. But I also think that with the middle school, something that made me think that the fifth graders who are younger, those are still kids who can have a bedtime, and you can tell them, so they may not sleep later to take full advantage of the later start time. They may still get up early, but they also can be directed to go to bed. At least in my house, they more or less are. My sixth grader is a little different story. But when she was in fifth grade, she was able to be, you need to go to bed now. And so even though the younger age middle schoolers may not have that natural sleep pattern to take full advantage of the later start time, I think just tossing thoughts around in my head that it might be something that they won't take advantage of it, but they will by seventh grade, because I'm already noticing that the later sleep is happening. But I also appreciate all of the comments that were made, because of all these different things that you just didn't really think about. And I echo what Terry and I think Karen and Amy both said, or all said about a happy medium, a compromise in there. And I know that a 7:30 elementary school start time goes counter to what we were trying to do, or what you were trying to do with the busing. We didn't want kids waiting for the bus before 7 a.m. And I think that's a goal, a good goal to stick with as well. So again, I rambled like I did last time, but those are all my thoughts that just keep jumping.
Thought strikes me again, similar. Right at the moment, I'm less concerned about athletics leaving to go to Barnstable to play a game. Those kids that can all be worked out. A couple of weeks ago, we committed $200,000 or $300,000 towards a math program. And it's going to be launched K through 7. And we all have strong hopes that in 2 or 3 years, we're going to see some really great growth on our kids. Well, those are the elementary kids. And if there was one thing I thought of or could think of that would improve the kids' ability to absorb, let's just not say the math concepts, but as a key area of growth in our districts, that would be one of them. That we would be wise if we could just take care of the elementary kids and cause that day to begin later, so that we don't have elementary teachers at 2:30 teaching them the Singapore math program. So I know it's indirect, but there's been a huge investment that we as a school committee towards the teachers have made in the way of training, and that's going to go on. And here we might see a flaw. We'll never know if we don't ever change. So that's, again, speaks to academic achievement.
I mean, I can speak on my end as I was going through and this strategic planning process, and just looking at the question was what are those levers that could most improve this district if we were to pull it, and I think one of the key things was we need to address math K through 7. We need to get that math program so that we've got kids that are heading into 8th grade algebra ready, and so that was one of the big ones. But it was also a huge eye opener, and I'm not an elementary guy, to sit down at Harwich Elementary School. We had every grade level teacher leader in both Chatham Elementary School and Harwich Elementary School with one united voice. It was the only meeting I ever went to where there was one thing that they all said and agreed on. and that's that the start time isn't working for us. And as I said at our last meeting, it's when Don King spoke on behalf of the kindergartners and said that, what we're losing each day in terms of, kids that are tuckered out and, lost learning time. And my own thinking started to change. It's like, okay, that's where, that's the one slide that I had in the presentation. If you really take that from kindergarten to first grade, to second grade, to third grade, to fourth grade, and if I want to say, okay, what's one thing I could possibly do, or we could possibly do as a district, to most improve the plight of the fifth graders when they're heading into middle school? Well, A, address math, but B, give them 900 more hours of learning time. And, so that's where my own thinking was on this. Just on some other notes, I tried to, in the email that I sent out this week to our staff and families, have a little FAQ to address some of the common questions that were out there. But some of the other ones that came out, just conversations that I was having here. I appreciate Kristen Hayden's concern that, will some of the things that happen after school potentially not happen? And my response is there might be some coaches or some advisors to clubs that aren't able to do it if we shift start times. But what we also do in the process is we suddenly have an entire new set of teachers who can be involved in athletics and clubs. And so I was talking to Joe Zabelski, who was in here, who would love a chance to go and coach at the middle school or high school level, but has never been able to because he's an elementary school teacher, and our elementary school teachers have never been able to be part of that. And so we have this wealth of talent that also potentially gets layered into this. I think so Joe was just talking about, hey, this might mean that I can go and coach. And so I think that there may be different things that happen. It's anytime you change something, things are going to change in how some activities might not run. That advisor that's been running it might have a family obligation, but there might be new people that are stepping forward.
I want to comment on some of the suggestions about coming up with a compromise between what's been proposed. I think we have an instinctive desire to compromise because we have competing parties, and it's natural that we want to come up with something that is a compromise between the two parties. And I ask a question as opposed to making a conclusion, but there are times when a compromise makes it not worth doing at all. If this is important enough and it's been studied enough and the hours that are being proposed are based on science and fact, whereas a compromise might eliminate all the advantage, then I don't think it's worth doing the compromise. You just don't do it at all if the compromise isn't going to help. And I don't know the answer to that question, but I think we have to not try to look for a compromise unless we feel that the compromise is going to be just as beneficial as doing it the way it's been proposed.
To kind of follow up with Brian, but then also ask Scott a question, something that I kept trying to think of and it kept reminding me that a lot of schools start before 8 o'clock, high schools start before 8 o'clock as it is, and they're pushing to just start at 8 and not even pushing to start after that. So our high school and middle school is already starting at 8, which is what a lot of school districts are trying to get to, even that point, and they're getting pushback from their communities trying to get to that point. So I think anything even after 8 o'clock would be beneficial. I mean, up to 9 o'clock, which is one of the more ideal times. But I think anything after 8 for high schools is going to benefit the kids, which kind of leads me into the question. When we opened Monomoy High, you initially proposed an 8:30 start time for the high school, right?
Yeah, we were initially looking later, and so we were looking to try to be consistent with the literature and the report from the American Pediatrics Association that's suggesting an 8:30 or later start time makes sense for middle school and high school, and that's kind of where I lump that middle school in this, and you are correct. There's the research talks about high school, and really middle school are the lost people in the research in this. But it was to look at that 8:30. And when we looked at when would our athletes have to get out, given the league upper end, and given how far our travel was, it wasn't so practical. We were also trying to balance that off with with a want to not have kids standing out for buses before 7 o'clock. There's a number of people that have asked one of the questions I tried to answer in the Q&A is, there is a possibility for a middle ground that we could look at a 7:30 start for elementary and an 8:30 start at the middle school, which would be consistent with where the research is. But we need to go in eyes wide open that what does 7:30 mean for an elementary child here on Cape Cod in November, when the bus run is going to need to be a 50-minute bus run at a minimum to get from the far corners of Chatham and Harwich and get the kids to school, that there will be kids standing out at a bus at 6:40 in the dark. And now granted, there'll be elementary school and most likely with their parent there, but still, it was one of those things when we were going into this, we wanted to avoid. I think another interesting piece, and I think where Nancy was saying that schools have that are looking at shifting start times back for the high school, and many of them are starting at 7:15 and are trying and shooting to shift it back to 8. Most of them have just pushed the elementary schools further back, and
Meaning earlier or later?
So now their elementary schools are where we are or later, and that's if you look at the start times of elementary schools on Cape Cod, for the most part they're in the 9 o'clock range and beyond, and that's where I started to kind of scratch my head saying, okay, and again going back to Dawn King's comment, she was like, why is high school athletics driving this this system, and isn't there something that makes more sense? And if I look at most of the high schools that have shifted back have just pushed the elementary school that much further back. There are only two systems I can think of that in the process of shifting the high school back move the elementary school forward, and that's Duxbury and Nauset. And I reached out to the administration and both had a good conversation with Tom Conrad, the new superintendent at Nauset, who was there as the high school principal at the time, and he has seen this as very positive, both at the elementary and at the high school level. Duxbury, I was looking at theirs, and their data is very compelling on the benefits that the high school had. But when I reached out to the elementary, the assistant superintendent, the elementary principal there, it seems very beneficial in terms of what they've seen for the elementary kids. They were seeing the same thing before they did this flip. They were seeing the exact same thing that our elementary teacher leaders were referring to, that kids were tuckered out, and they've seen their elementary schools regain that hour and a half each day. And if you look at the MCAS scores 3 years before they went and did this shift, and the MCAS scores at the elementary 3 years later, there's a correlation that there was an improvement there. Whether they started Singapore math or not at the same time, I don't know, but but there seems to be, and at least the administration of Duxbury said that that middle school and high school, after making the shift, would never look back. That was right for them, and it seems very right in terms of the academics. But some parents have emailed saying, there's really not a lot of research out there on what the impact is on elementary school, and there's not. And most of the reason is because most elementary schools in the process of shifting high schools back have just gotten shifted that much further away from what makes sense really with young kids' circadian rhythms.
So I am trying to think about these start times. Elementary starts at 5 till 9, is that correct?
8:55.
8:55. And what time does the high school start?
8.
8. So you have to have 50 minutes in there. Is that what you're saying?
So if we 55, we give the bus company 5 minutes of flex time, but it's about a 50-minute run.
Because it seems as though, as far as the elementary school, people are pretty okay with that, with the exception of what's the cost of added expense for childcare.
You mean switching? They're okay with it switching?
They would like it to be earlier. It's the middle and the high school that's controversial.
We have, but we need to be very sensitive. The voices for some families, it's a financial. Yeah, and no matter, I would say, if you have after-school costs and we shift forward, those are going to increase. I can't see that it's not going to be more of a financial impact. We can look at how we structure that, and it's easier for me to work with the Harwich program because it's under Monomoy, and I can talk with Teresa about how at Malone and Chatham on that program on how we might be able to potentially structure it to support it not being a financial burden for some families. But that's something that has come up in numerous emails and just conversations I've had with parents.
Right. I've heard a lot of comments about the Harwich After School program, the enrichment program, because it's a nice program, but it doesn't help people. It's nice for the kids that do it, but it doesn't help parents that much for babysitting because it ends at 4 and people need something till 4:30 or 5.
Well, but the enrichment's not the after-school care. So there's a program that families are covered till 5:30 each day. Either in Harwich, in Chatham, and there are also sort of enrichment activities that happen that families can opt for that aren't every day and don't go till 5:30.
So the after-school program in Harwich is kindergarten through grade 4 all in one gym area. And so we would think that the price of that would increase not only because of the time being longer, but are the kids that are from high school paid for that? The same wages if we hired a regular adult from?
So programs like the one that run in Harwich or Chatham, or even the one that runs at the Chatham Rec Center, the park program for middle schoolers, have a certain ratio for their license. So at the elementary level, they need to have one supervisor, adult that per 16 children. So if you think that the program's going to be an hour longer, they're going to have an hour more staffing costs that, it wouldn't be a huge increase. You can imagine that you're passing on that staffing, 1 hour of staffing cost divided amongst, roughly 16 families. Yes, but it would be an increase.
So it's very complicated. Thank you.
Just one point, I'm not for or against changing the elementary school start time, but everybody seems to be mentioning that for elementary school children, it's better for them to start earlier because at 2 or 2:30, they're absolutely toast. Well, I just want to say that's not 100%. My son at 2:30 is still going like this. And he is not up in the morning until like 7:30. So an 8:55 start time works really well for him. It's, I'm just wanting to say that as an example, that it's not 100% that, you know, all elementary school kids need to start really early. What is that percentage? Do we know?
I think Karen's point, that's why this is somewhat complex. There is no black and pure white, yes and no, and if it was, it would have already been done years ago by all the Commonwealth villages and cities. Instead, there's a mix here, that you make a decision one way, or you stay with what you have, and the status quo determines it, or you hold your breath and make the decision and see how it all works out. That's the call we're sitting on for the next few weeks.
Any other comments? Well, this will keep going.
Actually, could you look into the middle school teachers and then find out what their, I mean, I know Mark was here.
Mark's here.
I don't know if, do you have any sense as to the middle school teachers? I mean, the survey that was kind of passed around informally, it was a majority against changing, right?
Yeah, there were 43 staff members who responded to the survey. Of those, 2/3 of them were either, most of those 2/3 were strongly in disagreement or in disagreement. And then the other third were in agreement or strong agreement. So I think it's an accurate reflection of how the staff feels as a whole.
And why? I mean,
I think a lot of things you've already heard.
Okay.
You know,
Nothing
the
new.
Common Core state standards describe fifth grade, I mean, they break it out K to 5 and 6 to 12 for a reason. And our fifth graders are elementary students. Do you want me to do the microphone thing? Yes. So, I mean, even in the Common Core state standards, they define fifth grade as elementary. So it's problematic just from the perspective of the research, which I shared at the last school committee meeting. Our sixth graders developmentally kind of fall one side or the other.
I'm pretty sure it changed like right in the middle of the year in my house.
That's about when it changes. So really, from the perspective of a common start time for the middle school, if all the students grades 5 through 7 are coming in, the research would say we're advantaging half of the students and disadvantaging the other half. And when you look at the survey back from the middle school, it kind of reflects sort of that data. I will send to the school committee some more information about how it may impact the afternoon part with a little bit more detail to what Kristen Hayden was talking about in terms of connections and opportunities. I do know from my perspective that as students move through school K to 12, the homework load should naturally increase a bit as we move through to the school year ages. And that means as homework usually is done in the afternoon or evening, and the less time we have in the afternoon and evening to get homework done, the more challenging it is to get our students up in the morning for the middle school and actually get homework done before they walk in the door in the morning. So I'm just a little bit cognizant of that balance between what's available for student support at home from moms and dads and how much time we give students when they actually leave the door at the end of the day to get that work done, particularly if they're involved in other community activities like dancing or karate or any other activities.
That's why it's sometimes referred to as the muddle school.
Not by me, but yes. Thank you.
Thank you. We have, when we were regionalizing, we talked a lot about the fact that we were working towards retaining students. And ironically, when do we lose students the most? From 5th grade, right? After 5th grade, we lose them to Lighthouse School. What time does the Lighthouse School start? 5th or 6th grade?
We actually lose more to Nauset than we do to Lighthouse.
Okay, so we lose more to Nauset. So what is the Nauset 5th grade or 6th grade starting time?
They start second.
8:30. Like 8:30?
They start at the high school time?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So they're
So parents who are upset about it, if they're gonna move to Nauset, that's not gonna solve the problem.
They have programmed their circadian cycle several months in advance to allow that to happen.
What was your theory?
No, it wasn't a theory, I was just wondering, it just occurred to me that we spent so much time saying we lose kids from 5th grade to 6th grade, it just occurred to me how this question was gonna affect that, to ask it. Thank you. We'll move on to the strategic plan update.
Oh, I was hoping I'd get another copy.
What's that?
I said I was hoping I'd get another copy.
So what we're going to try to do is go column a meeting.
That's not one column, is it?
Oh, yeah. So,
Like Chinese.
what's that?
Stapling on the top right corner.
Yeah, I've still never quite figured out how to operate a copy machine.
At the end, they're not getting 6.
So the first column for the strategic plan talks about developing ongoing, appropriately challenging interdisciplinary curriculum. And there are here, there's a page that, for each of the 5 bullets or 5 strategic initiatives within that column. And I'd like to go and credit and thank Mark Wilson and Dr. Blanchard and Robin Willen and our esteemed business manager. We're the big brain trust behind putting together and looking at these action steps. So the first one deals with emphasize close reading and writing from sources across all disciplines. So what we've tried to do here is you'll see in each one, with each strategic initiative, a grid of action steps, when they'll be happening. I tried to highlight in each one of those grids the things that are happening now or have happened this school year. As this has been sort of an ongoing dialogue, we started our kickoff meeting with the teachers this year. We started talking about close reading and writing from sources. That here's one of the things we're going to be launching into, and shortly after that kickoff meeting, many of them were in their professional development with Nancy Boyles, which shows up in that first line, and that endeavor has continued across this year and will get further in depth as we go down the action steps over the upcoming years. So the first step in there is we are providing elementary and middle school training in close reading and writing from sources. The next action step that is currently ongoing this school year is to design performance test assessments focused on the close reading and writing from sources. As we look towards next year, is to develop school-wide rubrics aligned with the state assessment rubric on this. As we look into the subsequent school year, to develop a map of performance tasks to check for vertical alignment, and then we would develop and revise the existing units to align with the performance test. That will be an ongoing piece that would happen throughout these years, and then collect, calibrate, and analyze the performance tasks. So we try to look at when this is happening. A lot of this is happening as part of these professional learning times. So you'll see here that the shift goes in this from really from Dr. Blanchard and the principals kicking it off, to shifting to the instructional leaders and department heads working on this effort during the professional development times that the teachers have. Do we have questions on this before we flip the page?
Well, a question or maybe a suggestion. This is excellent. Back in the day, I used to hold on to these things and hold my breath to see where my name was. To find out how often am I listed. It'd be nice, I think, for all of us. In the first page, you say key resources required, copies of anchor text, consultant fees, summer stipends. where appropriate in the future, could there be a column that says $5,000? In other words,
estimate ballpark.
yeah, so that at some point, we could look and say, over the course of the year, this particular action step has cost us $6,000 to, in real, I'm just talking about a ballpark, I'm not exact, a vendor bill or just
We'll get
so.
to the math one, we can give you hard numbers.
They do in Singapore, so.
In the second strategic initiative is looking at the math curriculum. And this is one that we could come back and plug in, literally hard numbers for this now. To reverse engineer the curriculum to improve the academic preparedness for statewide exams and ultimately prepare 8th graders for algebra. So the first process in this was to have a team of teachers evaluate math curriculum, come up with recommended pilots. And as I mentioned, we went through that process, and the recommendation was, let's go with math in focus, not pilot. Let's move forward. This is the one. Let's implement it. So step 2, which is currently underway, is to adopt the program. We brought it here to the school committee and have moved forward in securing both the materials to be here for us next year, but also to begin the professional development process. Third step here, provide professional development for elementary, middle school teachers to successfully implement math in focus. It's ongoing. In fact, we will be doing this. Our middle school teachers and middle school math teachers will actually start their training for math in focus before the end of this school year, so that they'll be able to go off this summer starting to plan on how to move forward in it, and our elementary teachers will be training over the course of the summer heading into the beginning of next school year. And then one of the other things that we I think mentioned during the presentation is we want to do a little parent academy on math and how to help your children in math. It was one of the meetings I think Sharon and I were at with the Dennis Harwich Rotarians, and there was a guy there who commented. He said, I like to help my nieces and nephews on their math, but even though I'm a math guy, they seem to be teaching it a different way, and it's a different way of looking at things. And I think Mary Hemming, when she came here, was talking about that sort of new way of looking at math. So part of this is to help parents understand what's there, but also let parents know what resources this. Some of the nice things about this program is it comes with a lot of online resources that families will be able to go to. And I know that in the former district that we were with, there were times where I tried to explain to my son how to do a math program, and he'd be telling me, "Dad, you're doing it wrong." Well, I knew I was coming up with the right answer, but it was the wrong. They were showing a different method to get to the answer, and so it was nice to be able to go online and see what's the method that he's learning, so I can go back and be consistent at home with that.
I have a comment. On these in-services for elementary and middle, with whether it's close reading or whether it's math, will all the teachers in the building, not just the academic teachers, be trained so they could do interdisciplinary?
So I think we're training at the elementary level, the elementary teachers all teach math. I think at the middle school level, the teachers start to specialize. So we have teachers that just teach math at the middle school level, but we will be training the special ed teachers that support math instruction in this new math program.
But what about music and art and library and all of those? Will they have some? Because they may want to integrate some of this. into some of their lessons?
I'll defer to Dr. Blanchard on if that has come up in conversation yet.
It has not come up in conversation. I think that there's a balance. We seem to be talking about balance a lot. The feedback I get from teachers who are, oh, sorry.
Please move on.
Yep. The feedback I get from unified arts teachers at the elementary level is often that a training such as a full PD in math is kind of a waste of their time because they'd rather be working on their own content area. So I think there's a balance. I do agree. I think there are very, meaningful intersections where they can support math, especially in music and art, and in all of the other areas, PE. But we have to be mindful of what their needs are during our very precious professional development time that we have.
That's all I'm talking about, is if there was an introductory so they'd have some idea, because otherwise they might be in the position of integrating math in a way such as Scott might teach it.
We don't want that at all.
So, and the other thought I had was, when you do the Parent Academy, or, I don't know, maybe in Service for Teacher, but especially the Parent Academy, if there's a way to YouTube something so that people that aren't in attendance there could go on and do a little bit of a 5-minute or 10-minute thing at home.
Yeah, we have a great technology person who does a lot of podcasts and send them out, and I think that's a great idea. It's been very successful within the faculty.
As a grandmother, I might need to do a little bit.
With the math program, you mentioned that I think you mentioned that some of the teacher education is going to be starting before the end of this school year. It says September 6, 2016 on your chart, so which is which? Which is the ones that are going to start this year?
So the middle,
June 13th.
Yeah. So
June 13th will be the middle school teachers, and then the elementary will be in the late summer or just before school starts.
This is new development since
this was printed.
So, so we were just securing a date for that, and again, it's just trying to line up dates for these to happen.
Not that my wife will want to know.
On the next page, strategic initiative C, outline and enact a cycle through which curriculum in each academic area is regularly assessed, developed, implemented, and evaluated. I don't know if you recall, a few meetings back, Dr. Blanchard came and presented a sort of a look through cycling the curriculum so that we as a district go and continually look at our curriculum and refresh it, and again, I think getting to points that that Terry brought up. I think that we need to very consciously put a dollar sign there in each budget cycle to to say, okay, it's time to refresh the textbooks so that we don't get back to where we came into this regionalization process with math curriculum that was woefully either out of date or just not consistent between buildings, so that we have that routinely, that we're updating the science textbooks or updating history textbooks, and again, that it doesn't happen unless we consciously say, okay, we're putting money aside to go and refresh this curricular area every 5 years.
Do we have that developed now? Could that be, or is it on the website?
It is on the website.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We were on the website, is it?
They gave us a copy last meeting.
I know, but then I know where it is now.
So, so the first, we, as a team, took that cycle, kind of came up with what makes sense in terms of where the priorities to look at, took it to the department heads and instructional leaders, shared that cycle with them, got their feedback, and brought that to you. And now it's moving forward as we go into the out years and implementing that curriculum review cycle. Then I think we start to get into some exciting areas on the next two. I was meeting with Dr. Blanchard and Principal Wilson and the department heads at the middle school level, and I think as we go into this one initiative, part of it was thinking about what's that model of brand, particularly at the K through 7 level. What are we going to be about? Yeah, and if somebody looks at our middle school, looks at our elementary schools, what are these key things that our learning's leading up to? So the strategic initiatives to promote 21st century learning that deals with collaboration, creativity, communication, critical thinking, information, media, and technology skills within integrated units based on core content subjects with a focus on global awareness, civic health, environmental, and financial literacy. The direction as this year has gone along is to really look at our middle school sort of spearheading an approach to service learning and looking at as we have these transitional grade levels, and starting to sort of focus on a middle school service learning experience that leads to a capstone project in the 7th grade, that our 7th graders have this sort of culminating experience, not unlike when we had Rachel Barnes come and talk about how her Project Citizen students had this experience. Well, if you took the time to go back, if you weren't on the school committee at the time and looked at that Project Citizen presentation that they came to the school committee before I was here, when Superintendent Cragen was here, and many of you were there. They gave that presentation. They also gave that presentation outside of the Monomoy district as well. So to think about what sort of opportunities can we have where you have these big meaningful projects, and hopefully have it be much like that Project Citizen project where the students were the ones that chose that topic. They did the research and came up with a topic that they were going to research and work on and move forward. So, so we have a set of middle school teachers that are looking at spearheading this and really piloting it for the district. So the first piece is to form a service learning council comprised of administrators, teachers, students, parents, and community members to build school community partnership for student projects. So, we're in the process of forming that, and we have some of our teacher leaders are starting to step forward on this. So the second phase there, I refer to as seed professional development of service learning within the staff. So we have in the spring of this year, we have I think it's 7 middle school teachers that will begin this process and hopefully share their insights out with their colleagues. And then as we go into the upcoming years, provide other professional service. Again, build the capacity within the teachers to kind of think about this type of service learning. And I know as Mark, Principal Wilson, is looking at developing the middle school schedule, some of the conversations that, that we were having with the department heads was a schedule that would accommodate sort of more project time, again, to have students move that forward. I believe that, one of the things they're mentioning is, when Chatham Middle School used to do the Project Citizen, it was in a humanities block that, there was almost a 2-hour block of time that the teachers and students were engaged in that interdisciplinary project. So how do we build a middle school schedule that provides that sort of collaborative learning time too? So so we have developed building-based themes for this. Again, thinking about starting at the middle school level, but bringing it down to have elementary school culminate in a 4th grade project. And then ideally looking at that project having, maybe it's a 10th grade, that there's a 10th grade culminating project, but we have capstone projects at different grade levels that all have this service learning piece to it. Offer professional development on service learning to build capacity on capstone projects during the fall, winter of the next school year, and expand service learning to capstone projects at transitional grade levels, and develop interdisciplinary units that incorporate service learning and include presentation skills as one of the things that we're stressing in that as we look to the end of next year. And then thematically along that same lines, the last of these strategic initiatives is to create horizontal and vertical curriculum framework pre-K to 7 that integrates science, technology, reading, engineering, art, and math to achieve the Monomoy vision by leveraging unique history and environment of our communities. So here we're looking at what sort of partnerships can we build primarily on the science end within our communities, and what sort of partnerships can we build on the history end to create those interdisciplinary opportunities for students, and kind of almost relating back, so that these service learning projects, ideally might have a science bend to them, or a history connection to them. There's, I was mentioning to Carla before we came to the meeting tonight, this also connects very much in the next column that we'll talk about at our next school committee meeting, that deals with parent-community partnerships. So they all interconnect. So here we would have coordinate and connect science experiences K through 7, and again, it's looking at what that science curriculum is that's happening, and how can those experiences nicely tie together. And I think now that we've talked about at the high school, looking at sort of an oceanography approach, it will likely be looking at how that then nicely feeds into an 8th grade oceanography program. Then we have developed interdisciplinary units around science and local history experiences K through 7. And the last piece is really identifying those community science and history related partners with whom our middle school students, primarily at 7th grade, can collaborate on capstone service learning projects. Again, that tie back into the initiative before.
Where is the social emotional curriculum? Is that
Column 4.
that will be later? Okay. The last two on this, I don't think were in the original strategic plan. I'm not saying they're not good, but I think they've come out of nowhere.
No, they're there.
They're there at the beginning?
Yeah.
Because I don't remember talking about that, certainly not math or science. It was reading and math, and those are the only academic areas. And the service learning, I don't remember.
I think the service learning piece, as we, as a team working with the teachers, looked at how do we operationalize the initiative to promote 21st century learning. That initiative, it was really that let's do it through service learning, and that we want to say, okay, how do we do that in Monomoy? And the want and thought is that let's look at it through that lens. And there's a lot of energy currently at the middle school to really move forward and in that direction.
There is. There's a lot of energy at that middle school, period.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, moving on. Concession stand fundraising.
So I would like to, at the end of this meeting, give Ms. Jordan some stuff to go live on the website if we are all on the same page that this is the route to go. So we had a meeting with the co-chairs of the building committee and Mr. Russell and myself to discuss moving forward on fundraising for the concession stand at the turf field. So this is a document that I would like us to sort of put out there as the public launch on what we are looking for and what we hope to accomplish. But the long and short here is I'm trying to emphasize that it's not just a concession stand for football, period. It's a concession stand that whether you have a child in kindergarten who doesn't play sports but down the road will go to an event as a spectator, or you have a middle schooler who plays field hockey, or a high schooler that's on the track and field team, it's something that's going to benefit every student and family in some way, shape, or form over their experience here. And for the families that have kids that do Oceania soccer, there is an alternative coming besides using the woods. There will be restrooms that will be there that to use for youth groups that are using our fields and the nearby town fields. So what we hope to do is launch a fundraising effort. We look at it, we have $12,000 promised to get this going. We estimate that we need about another $10,000 to start going vertical and have walls and a roof. But to get this project to fruition, we really need another $65,000 roughly in donated materials and labor, roughly 2/3 of that being donations of cash to purchase materials, and 1/3 of that value being donations of time and expertise for labor. We have a number of parents and community members who have reached out saying, hey, I'm willing to help do the framing, or that's what my expertise is, or I'm a plumber, I can help with the plumbing or electric, so that so it's really tapping into a community expertise for that piece of it, along with people like Mr. Burke and myself, who may not be builders that can swing a hammer for a good cause, but at the end of the day, unless you have money to go and buy the boards and nails, you're not going to start building the building. So what we propose here is to have an official kickoff event the Saturday before Memorial Day, to have essentially an afternoon of games and food and also an auction that I'd like to bounce off you for your input and permission, but to have an auction of some key memorabilia that was, I believe, surplused, but hasn't been disposed of, so to speak. So the Rough Rider weather vane that blew off of Harwich High School, we still have, and are hoping to fetch a pretty penny for. We have a number of other signs from both the Chatham facility and the Harwich facility that that we can put out there for an auction, and who knows, maybe we'll have some other community partners that want to provide some goods to auction off at this athletic, food and fun event on the 21st, and hopefully that will secure us the money to at least go vertical, if not get us further along towards the end of this project. We have had Mount Vernon Group, who are the architects on this project, generously donated time and their expertise to provide construction drawings for this project and stamped engineering drawings that we would need to secure insurance for a building once completed. We're suggesting that community members can contact our business office with donations, and Ed McManus has volunteered to be the organizer of the labor to move this forward. I also would just like to thank the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod and the Harvest Cranberry Festival. They were the ones that gave us the seed money that we have to start with for this. The suggestion that we have here is that we acknowledge the donors in this project, and there's in the architectural rendering of the concession stand, there's a plaque that we would sort of acknowledge people for contributions, and I'm suggesting contributions of $5,000 or more could be part of the Great White Club. And we have the Mako Club and the Amendment Club and the Blue Shark Club. So, and again, just since some of these contributions may not be in cash, but may be in expertise, to acknowledge those volunteers that put in 40 hours of work in that on that plaque ultimately too. So this was the strategy we talked about and the launch approach, and I wanted to bring it here because it does involve some surplusing of some disposal of some items in an auction and a overall fundraising event.
Questions?
Just a comment from Scott. Sometimes, this has been my impression of this unfinished business, this concession stand. It's really a gift to have it unfinished, because this is more than just putting up, how would I phrase it? The building committee found the money in putting in a sports context. They hit a triple by putting $150,000 into that foundation and the plumbing and the electrical underground. So the project is on third, and we're asking the community to drive it home. So there's some money needed, but yet really beyond that, There's no doubt that all the school councils, the elementary schools, as well as the high school here, can use energized people. So we invite them to this opening, and 50 people, 30, 70, 80 people show up. That's all in the task to get this done, but in the meantime, they'll brand themselves. They'll feel that they own part of this project, which will finish it off, but really, I think, could further get more people involved, like I think Scott and Kyle said the next presentation on the strategic plan is community involvement. This is a perfect excuse to plead with people to come out and join us to finish this off. So I think it's a terrific reason. It gets them on the grounds, and at the same time, hopefully by next fall, it'll be done, and it'll be done with workers who not just say high school athletic parents, but also elementary parents from the two schools and from the middle school, because they're the ones that are going to really benefit over the years. So I think it's a great opportunity to put another little charge into creating this Monomoy region.
I'm excited to see it come to fruition as well, because I remember back in the early days of the building committee, that was always the idea, was to have some sort of community build for part of the high school so that people had that connection to it. So I very much appreciate this, and I think it's a good idea.
Anybody else? So, are you looking for approval tonight to hold the auction of those items?
I don't necessarily, if the committee wants to give me the approval for the auction of those items, we can.
Normally not part of our program to have a presentation and vote on it the same night, but if anybody would like to
I think
entertain a motion.
it's a great idea. I move to go forward with this.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So moved. Move on to subcommittee reports. Anybody have anything to share? Karen?
The superintendent evaluation subcommittee met this morning. We do not have any written documentation of Scott's analysis or reflections on the progress he's made on meeting the goals. So until we have that, we'll not be able to move forward with the evaluation. So we're waiting for that.
Okay. Any other input? Move on to the superintendent's report.
I was going to have reminded that Dr. Kenneth Hill will be here May 11th at 6:30, and now everyone can attend that we moved the meeting. In terms of building project, with the exception of this concession stand getting finished up, we're like this close to the project being completed. We met as a steering committee last Thursday, and we have a building committee meeting tomorrow night. The front fields, we are working with Cranberry Valley to have them have mowed, fertilized, ready for play in the fall. And again, I think one of the concerns that the number of our student athletes have is while we've been in this building, we've had everything stacked, one sports after the other, one practice after the other practice after the other practice on the turf field. That's all we've had. We will have 3 additional grass fields, including, and I greatly appreciate Sean Hernandez at Cranberry Valley. He intends to have the field hockey field that I understand once existed before I ever landed here on Cape Cod.
That's a high burden.
But he went to Harwich High School and knows what that field was like, and intends to have the front lawn and start mowing it to look like the putting green. So I'm excited to just see see the front, really be populated with student athletes, and we will be able to have, 4 different practices or games happening simultaneously and not have, field hockey waiting till 6 o'clock at night before it's their turn on a turf field. So there's a lot of nice things looking forward to next year, regardless of the start times change or not.
Same topic, same field, different topic. Earlier part of the meeting, we were chatting about Monomoy Regional High School graduation. Would there be plans to, not this spring, but the next year, have it on site on the front lawn? Or
I believe we have plans to have it this year on the front lawn, and I suspect that momentary disruption to the front lawn
would neither
will be okay. Hopefully that doesn't violate any warranty on the grass. But speaking of warranties, then we have this other last issue that we're dealing with, which is the HVAC system on the roof. And I was talking today with Mike Morrison, who's our Skanska project manager on this, and we are working on a meeting with the HVAC subcontractor and our general contractor to address some, there are some things that we feel the rooftop units should have that would help prevent any catastrophic issues that we've had in the past. They have made significant movement forward on some things. So all the rooftop units now have these voltage phase monitors, so a power spike that comes through the grid isn't going to hurt the units and burn out motors. So there's the protections that the units didn't have when they were installed that are there now. A lot of it right now is making sure that there are things that would protect these units from freeze-ups that we've also experienced. So there are some areas of some of these cabinets that we feel should be insulated in the specs and weren't, and so it's kind of getting clarity why. We feel that there should be a type of sensor that should be in the coils of these units that isn't, and again, wanting to get some clarity as to why. So I'm sure it will be a challenging set of conversations, as Terry can attest to, being part of these meetings on HVAC. But we're close to the end on that. In terms of we have town meetings, our next 2 Monday nights. I have included in your packet something that I will send out to our families that if you're from Harwich or if you're from Chatham, to just sort of read, both from a budget standpoint, but also from a where are we going? Good news. So there's a letter that I wrote for Chatham and the point counterpoint for Harwich that speaks to some of the great things. The first paragraph closes talking about just the great success we've had with college acceptances, and it speaks to the quality of the program that we have and the quality of students that we have here at Monomoy Regional. The second paragraph really focuses on enrollment. I know that there's been a lot of concern that we want to keep families here with us. That's I think that's a great barometer of success of the district. There's right there in that paragraph is some really solid numbers that we're making headway there. The district itself has 3 fewer students this year than last year. There are 14 fewer students from Harwich here attending school at Monomoy Regional, offset by 14 more students from Chatham. So it kind of balances out. There was a net, if we look district-wide, there was a net loss of 3 students. If Harwich and Chatham's even, the net loss of 3 students was, students in school choice. And we have to keep in mind that we closed a kindergarten classroom at Harwich Elementary School. Had we kept that kindergarten classroom open and let in students by school choice, we would have had more students. Whether it would have made financial sense, I would argue it would not. But so we're heading the direction we want. But the real good news, if you look at the charter schools and where kids are and school choice, both Harwich and Chatham have a significant decrease in the number of families that are looking towards charter schools and school choice. So there's I think if I recall correctly, a 19% decrease in just this past year for Chatham students looking out, 12% decrease from Harvard students looking out. Again, good positive news. And the next 2 paragraphs I just shared that that we're heading in a good direction, and this is it's a level staff budget essentially that we are still enhancing the program. I just talked about Singapore math that we're bringing to the K through 7 classrooms next year, and how that will benefit the math, but also reintroduction of business classes, physics at the high school level, and just a lot of the wonders that we've seen happen with the explosion of the video program here within the building. All of that in a budget that has been very well received by selectmen and finance committees in both towns. So it is good news. I don't know who's delivering the budget message at Chatham and Harwich, but here's some cliff notes for you. Karen.
I saw this actually in the Chatham warrant, and the tech information was either right before or right afterwards, but I noticed that included with the information from Cape Cod Tech and their budget was a series of graphs and charts. Or did any of you see this? Any of you Chatham people? And it provided information on their testing scores relative to graduation rates and other things relative to the current, the immediate past year and years before that, and I think compared to the state. And I thought that was really helpful and really useful, and it would probably be a good idea if we did that also for Monomoy.
We'll mark it as things to do for next year. Any other questions? Right.
Since we're not scheduled to have a meeting the night of town meeting for Howard Chatham, then obviously we're not seeking to amend our budget in any downward way. Is that right? So have we received any additional information with regard to funding or expenses that would affect that decision, has caused us to not seek to have any further reduction in the budget? I mean, we're likely to be asked, we passed our budget, and one of the promises we made when we passed the budget was that we would continue reviewing it towards any possible changes.
I would say the preface here is we still don't have absolute certainty from Beacon Hill on how this is going to break for the 2 towns. It seems that the budget the governor put out there that actually is a little bit more favorable towards Harwich seems to be progressing forward, and the numbers that we have here are numbers that support what that initial governor's budget breakdown is. I'm also, it was clear in the presentations that we made to both our select boards and the finance committees that if we are in a situation where there's more money that's coming from the state, that what we would look to do is to use less excess and deficiency. And I have shared with the town managers and finance directors in both towns that we may, or we will, if exercise the right to help fund Singapore Math, which is a one-time purchase with, so we can, the challenge is the decision to head with the Singapore Math was kind of coming post, you start a whole budget deliberation back in December, and the decision to go with Singapore Math comes in late, but shared that, that we can still within this budget make it happen. It just depends on how much excess efficiency we are applying and how much of the funds that we otherwise were going to be using, we use to purchase the math curriculum for the district.
Karen?
I thought we were purchasing Math and Focus.
It's the same thing.
Same thing.
Singapore Math is part of the,
I thought that was the original name, or that was what's been incorporated into it, but it's actually called Math and Focus.
Correct.
that's true.
Okay. Maybe we should call it Math and Focus.
We don't want to Shanghai that name.
Oh.
Unexistent.
You want to be a hammerhead? That's
I
what's
agree.
next.
Going back to the town meeting evening, I'd suggest that, Howard, you share the good news as our superintendent with our vice chair. And in Chatham, the same way with Steve.
Actually, I'm on the warrant as a person speaking.
I saw that too.
Excellent.
I'm happy to have the school committee speak.
I'm sure you would.
Good planning. Thanks for letting me know.
I would just add to this that
Well, actually,
on the listserv that I look at from people all over the state that are on school committees, there, you know how we, at our last meeting, we talked about the funding resolutions that we were passing. So that and a zillion other things are going on in all these different towns. So I don't expect that the governor is going to be settled on what he's going to do for a while, because there's so many lobbying things, the day on the Hill maybe this week or something, but there's a whole lot of pushes from everywhere. So I mean, it seems like a crazy way to do things, but this is the way it's done. So you never know what's going to be happening until you're already into the school year.
And so the number that's here, allows Chatham to prepare for, sort of the contingency and Harwich to prepare for it. And if more money comes from the state, it just means that we use excess and deficiency differently.
That's great.
and it all comes down to the House and the Senate, so.
Yes,
We're just starting to look at it.
yes.
Correct.
Right.
That's why it doesn't usually get approved until July 1st. Anything else?
You mentioned in the last meeting's superintendent's report that you were not renewing a contract for an athletic coach, and you said because he was not taking us in the direction that we wanted Monomoy to go. I just wondered if you could tell us what direction that is?
I don't think open meeting is the place to have that conversation. I
Well,
think we can have it in executive session, which is happening after this.
I understand, but I thought that was in open meeting, the direction.
But it tends to be a personnel issue, so to make a broad statement in open meeting is one thing. To get into a personnel issue in open meeting is not correct. So,
I just thought the definition of a direction wasn't specifically related to a person, but I guess I was wrong.
I think it was intentionally vague.
yes. Next item on the agenda is action items. We have 2 action items for this evening. The first being the declaration of surplus equipment.
Only that's my job.
I was trying to get rid of it.
I'm sure you were. It's a good switch. I would like you to declare surplus from Monomoy Regional High School Library 421 library books from approximately 1945 to 2000. It's a little before my time.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Next on the agenda is the Chatham Elementary School Improvement Plan, which was presented to us at our last meeting.
I would move to approve the Chatham Elementary School Improvement Plan that was presented at the last meeting.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Yes.
I just have a question. I think it's a great plan, and I really thought it was terrific. I think there weren't, what was it that we didn't see, maybe specific action steps or SMART goals or evidence? There was something specific that wasn't in there. And it may just be something that you're going to develop. Could you just keep us informed on that? You might know what I'm speaking to.
I don't know.
Sorry, we don't have it in front of us this week, and my apologies.
If you get it to me, I'd be happy to take a look at what you're talking about. I can't remember how it was. I remember speaking to Sharon about the social media. I'm not sure.
Robert, can you come up here, please?
It's late.
For their own. I know I spoke to Ms. Stout about social emotional at that time, and I thought we had talked about that, but we should go back and look at that.
I think it was that in the evidence of success, some of the things like student achievement, maybe you could be more specific, just something more measurable.
Yeah, the team, the school council is going over it. When they meet next time, they're going to start making those benchmarks. I think some of that data collection has to be done with some of the data that we have, and then what are our projections as to where we would go. And that evidence of success, we can give you the information of what we'll collect, but it's hard to determine what it would be until we get some more information. But some of those things will be easy to identify, and some of them will be more difficult, but we'll continue to do that. We'll keep you updated.
Great, that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
It's really great to not only get the plans, but to hear later on how they worked out.
Oh, yeah.
Because we usually don't hear that part.
We'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Move to adjourn.
No, we have to vote.
All those in favor of
Aye.
approving the
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
Chatham Elementary School Improvement Plan?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. Second.
Good night, all. Thanks for coming.
They're all leaving.
A poll of
Sharon?
members?
Aye.
Aye, yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, Dory.
No. Yeah.